Maureen, are you doing?
Does she need to do it? Because it's good. I am. Okay.
Catch up with you. That's you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Today is August 20th, 2020, and it's approximately this evening. Apologize for the delay for anyone watching or participating. We, of course, are trying this for the very first time. It's always good to see our commission members here. And we're just sort of working out the bugs, so help us through it. Tonight we have some public hearings. And first off, I'd like to say out of the public hearings, for those of you viewing, that the special permit site plan application of Mirhan Shikhanjani for a barber academy, a barber shop at 1427 Berlin Turnpike. We're asking that we schedule that, delay that till September 3rd. Also, special permit site application of Thomas O'Rourke, Military Experience Museum Incorporated, for a military experience museum at 76 Chamberlain Highway and 0 Chamberlain Highway. Will also be rescheduled to open on the 3rd of September. Maureen, did I need a motion from the commission for that?
No.
Okay.
Just moving it.
Okay, then we're going to move on to item A under public hearings. We actually are going to combine the first 3 items under our agenda, and then we're going to break it down into sections. For those of you who are joining us via the video, that simply means that we'll be hearing 3 different portions of one item. And one of the portions deals with text amendments of the Metro Realty Group. The second portion is for the zone change request on Deming Road and the Berlin remnant land parcel, and also the special permit site plan application of 833 Deming Road LLC. So I believe we have the applicant with us, and I think did we have a call for the public hearing, Maureen? I did not get one in my packet, so am I stepping ahead? No. Okay, all right. Maureen, do you have yours?
I did not.
Okay, well,
There we
now.
go.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to pause here and let our secretary do the official call for the public hearing.
Legal notice, Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission, notice of public hearing. Reposting of public hearing items rescheduled from August 6, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, which was canceled due to storm-related power outages. The Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission will hold its regular meeting on Thursday, August 20th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in person at the Board of Education Conference located in the Board of Education Administrative Offices at 238 Kensington Road, Berlin, in the rear lower level of Berlin. The public will also be able to access and participate in the meeting via WebEx conference call as provided below. Therefore, the public may attend the meeting in person via WebEx video conference or via conference call. The following public hearings will commence at 7 p.m., at which time an opportunity will be given to those who heard relative to the following application. A, text amendment of the Metro Realty Group Ltd. to amend Berlin zoning regulations 6 VB workforce housing WFD. B, zone change request of 833 Deming Road LLC and Berlin Remnant Land Parcels LLC to change zone of block 122 lots 10, 11, 11-2 from residential 43 and office technology to workforce housing WFT. C, special permit / site plan applications of 833 Deming Road LLC and Berlin Remnant Land Parcels LLC to construct 11 residential apartment buildings, total 88 units at lot 10, 11-1, 11-2, block 122 at 833 Deming Road. Proposed amendments to the Berlin zoning reg section 7 regarding outdoor storage and industrial zones. To join via WebEx meeting link, https://counterberlin.mywebex.com/j.php?mtid=m1fb 656E162B2DB7611D596C598F76C419. Meeting number 132, 356, 8645. Meeting password PZC700 or 7927000 from phones and video system. To call in via telephone, dial in number 1-408-418-9388. Access code 123568645. Please note, the agenda and all meetings materials related to the agenda items which will be distributed to the commission will be posted on the town website at www.town.berlin.ct.us and will be available for viewing 24 hours prior, during, and after the meeting. Members of the public are encouraged to submit materials relevant to the applications no later than 12 p.m. on Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, posting prior to, during, and after the meeting. Brian Rogan, Secretary, Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission, posted in the town clerk's office, August 12th, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay, let's get back to the agenda as we have it. So the public hearings for 8, we're going to be combining them, but we're actually going to break it down to sections. But yeah, I would think so.
Okay, so move to merge items A, B, and C on the agenda to be presented all at the same time.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Zigma. Further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So moved. Okay, so let's go into the public hearing. So we have our applicant with us. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Ben Tripp, Director of Development with the Metro Realty Group. Just a preliminary matter, I'd like to, am I sending in the right place? Is that better?
Yeah.
So as a preliminary matter, I'd like to withdraw our application for special permit, as it was discovered that a special permit is not required for this application. So just as a procedural matter.
Okay.
A few introductions before I start. I have here with me this evening Attorney Tim Hollister, partner with Shipman and Goodwin, law firm Lane's attorney, and Tom Daly, our civil engineer, who's with Milo in the room. Also available via WebEx, we have Matthew Skelly, who's a traffic engineer from Fuss and O'Neill, as well as Ken Peck, who's a private architect for with Niagara. And then just a bit of additional background for those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, Metro Realty Group. We are a ground-up real estate developer based in Farmington, Connecticut. We're a fully integrated real estate firm construction, the maintenance, and the leasing activities on all of our properties. We have developed just over 30 properties, all in the central Connecticut area. I think most relevant tonight is our affordable housing experience, where we've done 17 developments across 4 towns, including 5 developments totaling 400 apartments in Berkeley. So we have considerable experience in town, and we're privileged to be able to hopefully get another good project. So that leads us to what we are here for tonight, which, as Chairwoman Beely described, we've got a couple of sections to our. First, I'd like to start with our text amendment. Let's see, maybe if I flip this around, I can scroll through while I share. So, the workforce housing zone is an existing zone, paragraph BB under section 11 of the Berlin zoning regulations. The purpose of the zone is to provide standards for a mixed income workforce housing multifamily development. By definition, in order to qualify under the workforce housing zone, a project is required to be defined as a assisted housing project, which essentially means that it is qualified as affordable housing under the 8-30 statute. So we are proposing a few modifications to the existing text. The first is to correct a discrepancy within the text. There's in one place in the existing text, it states that there are to be a minimum of 75 feet between buildings, and then later in the bulk requirement in the text, it states that there's the minimum standard is 20 feet between buildings. So we'll explain why we think 20 feet is the right is the correct requirement there. We're also requesting a reduction in the minimum parking ratio from 2.25 spaces per unit to 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. An increase in the maximum unit size from 1,200 square feet to 1,350 square feet per dwelling unit. An increase in the maximum area of private outdoor space from 150 square feet to 175 square feet. A modification to the definition of passive recreation space. A reduction of the front yard for parking only, not for building, from 20 feet to 15 feet. And finally, a modification of the definition of alternative eligible locations under the existing text. So I'll start with the minimum distance between buildings. As I mentioned, we feel that there's a discrepancy in the existing text, which in one location it states that there's a minimum of 75 feet between buildings, and in another there's a minimum of 20 feet. So the existing development within this workforce housing zone, there is it's Fieldstone Crossings, which is located on Deming Road, and when you look at that site plan, there's a location where the distance between buildings is 20 feet. Furthermore, each one of the buildings within that development, although they are treated as distinct buildings from a zoning and from a building code standpoint, the buildings themselves are effectively 10 feet apart, but they're treated as a single building because they're connected by an architectural element. So with that in mind, we felt correcting this discrepancy between, this conflict between the minimum building distances in the zone, it was appropriate to go with the 20-foot standard. Next is parking. We've done a lot of research both within our existing portfolio as well as looking at other town, recent multifamily regulations in nearby and comparable towns. I'll start with requirements in similar nearby zones. For example, the Farmington Midpoint Development District, a recently created district, allows a minimum of 1.25 spaces per dwelling unit. Southington, the redevelopment overlay district, allows for 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. And in Wethersfield, actually, any multifamily development in town has a standard of a minimum of 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. Furthermore, we, both our workforce housing development in town, Fieldstone Crossings, as well as some other market rate developments that we've done in Farmington and West Hartford, we consistently perform parking counts because it's important for us to understand what the true parking need is in each of these projects. We certainly don't want to pave more impervious surface than what is actually required, but at the same time, we want to make sure there's adequate parking because a development simply won't be successful if there's park for the residents or for their visitors. So we've consistently performed counts very early in the morning, very late at night, trying to hit all times of day to ensure that we're getting a full picture of what the parking need is. At Fieldstone Crossing, we've seen an average of 1.18 cars per unit and a high of 1.28 cars per unit. And then in our market rate development in Farmington, it's a bit higher at 1.31 per unit and at its peak 1.34 per unit. And then at our market rate development in West Hartford, similarly 1.26 per apartment on average and 1.30 at its peak. So we feel that this data combined with some similar zones and similar nearby towns suggests that reducing the parking requirement from 2.25 to 1.5 spaces per unit is advisable.
Yes, Mr. Wallman.
In this new, what you're proposing, the unit, what is your breakout in bedrooms?
It's 50% one bedroom and 50% two bedroom.
Okay, and so when you mentioned these other facilities in Farmington, Southington, and Weathersfield, can you give me a breakout of what their bedroom use was?
So
Or you're
this,
just taking something out of the reg?
so I'm taking something out of the reg.
So we don't
Yeah,
know,
so it can be whatever the,
because actually the bedrooms are gonna dictate that space.
yes, they should. They should.
Thank you.
Other questions? So see the red text here simply because we submitted a modification to after the fact to add another component of this text amendment, which was increasing maximum unit size as well as maximum private outdoor space. So there's really two driving factors for this increase. The first is simply just looking at recent market studies as people are spending more time in their apartment homes and having a sense that even when we return to normalcy, it's likely that there will be an increased prevalence of working from home environments. It seems that there's being a premium put on larger apartments, more space. That applies to both the gross heated area within a space as well as the private outdoor space that comes along with the apartment. The other component of this is, as I mentioned, in order to qualify under the workforce housing zone, you have to qualify as an assisted housing development with CHFA, DOH, or some state-funded organization. CHFA consistently updates their design standards, which call for a minimum dimension to certain elements such as your kitchen, your dining room, your living room, bedrooms. And in looking at units that we've done in the past and apartments that in the design requirements for apartments going forward, we feel that it's prudent to increase this maximum size so to ensure that the unit design can adhere to the requirements that CHSA is going forward for these various elements of the apartment.
Can I interrupt for one moment?
Sure can.
Because these were updates, I thought they were in one of the packages that was added to the website as subsequent materials, but I wanted for the record that they will be in anything you see tonight. It's not on the website currently because it's getting presented tonight, does become part of the record that will be on the website tomorrow.
Okay.
And that's in accordance with the executive order. That new material
All right.
gets uploaded tomorrow.
Good to know.
Next is the reduced front parking setback. So generally speaking, the workforce housing development zone applies to a particular part of town. You either need to be BT1 underlying zone, or you need to have considerable amount of frontage on Deming Road. So Deming Road, so these areas, particularly the frontage on Deming Road, there's a considerable right of way. It's virtually always at least 10 feet. Oftentimes it's close to 20 feet from edge of pavement to where the property line begins. So with that in mind, reducing a front setback from 20 we felt still provides an adequate distance from the road to be able to both screen parking lot as well as generally provide aesthetic continuity down the road. And similarly, there are many other towns within the town that have even less than the 15-foot, namely 10-foot setbacks in all of the zones that I've listed up here: PSA, PSB, GC, and so on. And finally, amending the definition of alternative eligible locations and standards. So currently the zone, the text of the zone is broken out into two sections. The first has the eligible locations, which includes an eligible underlying zone of B21 and some other requirements. There's a subsequent section that provides for an alternative eligible location, which allows for R43 zone and specifically locations with significant frontage on Deming Road. So as you'll see in a moment, the project that we're moving forward with in the second portion of this public hearing has an underlying zone, which is part R43 and part OT. And so we felt, rather than modifying the entirety of the regulation to incorporate these zones, it fit more appropriately within the alternative eligible locations. So knowing that the rezoning of both R43 and OT underlying zones is perhaps a sensitive matter, limiting the parcels to which that possible rezoning applies, we thought was prudent. We're also increasing the maximum units per gross acre from 1.5 to 8. Now that may seem like a significant increase. However, the base zone allows 15 units per acre within the zone already. So we're just over half of what's already permitted in the zone. And in general, for a multifamily development, 8 units per acre is not an incredibly intense or dense zone. So that concludes the text amendment portion of the presentation. I want to pause right now to see if any of the commission has questions on.
Commissioners, any questions? Yes,
As
go
far
ahead.
as your outdoor space you want to increase, are you putting in patios and decks, and that's what you're expanding, or are you just?
Yeah, so there's each first floor unit has a private patio with fence, and each second floor unit will have a private bathroom.
Thank you.
I do have a question before you go on. In regards to the parking, I know that you were originally, it was 2.5 spaces per unit, and now you're considering 1.5. You'd like to bring that down. I could never understand what 2.25 parking spaces were. To me, it's either 1 or it's 2.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, why are we going to 1.5 and not to 2?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with what Commissioner Woolman discussed, which is you have 1 bedroom units and you have 2 bedroom units. So typically there's some blend of need for spaces across the project. That doesn't really make sense to require 2 per unit when if half of your apartments have 1 bedroom in there. And similarly, a lot of the 2 bedroom it's virtually never the case that every 2 bedroom unit also has 2 cars. So it's a way, and then at the end when you're actually calculating what the parking ratio is, it's always a decimal as well. So you've got in our project, I think you'll see we have 152 spaces, 88 units, and it comes 1.72 spaces. Some of those are deferred, so I think it's initially 146 spaces for 88 units, which is approximately 1.65 spaces per apartment. And then we've got 6 spaces that are deferred, which we put on the plan, so in the event in the future, there is an additional parking requirement, we have the ability shown on the site plan that we can add those additional spaces. But again, that's gets you to 1.72 approximately units or spaces per unit. So to hold to you either have 2 spaces per unit, or 1 space is just a huge disparity between how many spaces you would end up needing to put on your site plan.
Are you then proposing that each unit would then have basically 1 space assigned, and that you would have a separate section allocated for visitors?
No, we don't have separate visitor parking. What we generally do is look at the mix of the units and the locations of the building, and group the parking spaces so that there's adequate parking for each building. So if you look at the site plan as we presented, you'll see that count the spaces. There's typically at least 1.5, not more, spaces within direct proximity for each building.
So for every 2 units, you'd have 3 parking.
Yes. I mean,
And you don't have a sign.
we exceed that in this, but no, we don't.
Most departments don't do that kind, so there's really no visitor,
Whoever
there's
gets
no
there
sign. You're there, you get the best spot, you're parking.
Well, I'm just thinking that, as people move in and life takes, becomes active again, and family comes to visit, or friends come to visit, or hey, everyone want to hang out and watch a movie. Now I'm just thinking that the parking's gonna overflow. I mean, and that's my concern, is I don't want them parking on Farmington Avenue. And I don't want them stealing spaces from other buildings or businesses that might be within that
Of
development.
course.
So that's where my concern is.
Understood. And I will say that the calculations that I provided from the other developments, were not only taken during the pandemic. Some of those counts are from, we track this data consistently because it's an important factor in our overall site design. So we feel, as I think I said, we're the ones who are lose not the high. So I would never propose a project that I felt like didn't have enough spaces, otherwise it would be a very difficult time to see apartments.
The 1.5 has the visitor built in, for the record, Tom Daly.
Yeah.
So really, as Ben's number, the day-to-day is more like 1.3, so that visitor is built into it. The 1.5 is also consistent with the Institute of Traffic Engineering, which is kind of the Bible, I guess, we use for that. They'll do studies all around the country and then do it. And it's been our experiences, the 1.5 is the sweet spot. Not too much pavement, but you don't have people clamoring and parking on the side streets. Because you're right, Denman Road is not an appropriate street to park on the street. So, but the 1.5, I can tell you, that's the number that everybody's talking about. And then visitors are built in. Where you do get in trouble is when they start talking about 2 and 3 bedrooms, right? That's a different mix. But we're just not seeing that in the marketplace. We're really seeing there's some things that get into like first year that simplifying it,
Joining this meeting, would you please?
It was always the plan that we would just do
See this. Thank you.
And I will say, to that point, 1.5 is the standard. That's why you'll see we are a little over 1.6, because it's much more important for us to have one or a few extra spaces, 2 spaces.
Yeah.
So we're very sensitive to the need to have that.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to ask any questions at this point regarding the presentation that we've had thus far? Mr. Wright,
Best way to stand.
I had to ask.
Thank you.
Chris Edgett, Director Town of Berlin.
Chris, how are you?
Just a couple small things they had mentioned here that I just wanted to mention briefly. First, the 2.2 spots to 1.5 cars, that is about the same percentage, 1.5 we had done for the Newport development down with the train station, so it's not something this commission has not done before. And with the discussions I've had with children, in their developments, I think that's what I'm going to consider. 150 feet to 175 square feet, that makes sense. It sounds like people are going to get bigger desks. So that seems to be a good idea. And I have some other things or later about development. I know this is more about the text itself, so
We're going step by step.
I will. Those are my initial thoughts, because I know that the big change from 2.25 to 1.5 was a concern to some folks, but I wanted to mention the fact that we did do that, this commission did that with the Newport development, we very similarly with the Turnpike Ridge.
Isn't that a workforce development also?
What's that?
Isn't Lovely a workforce development also?
Lovely does not, but basically the parking itself, and the parking mix is a little different, but it's very close to what they're doing. So it's not, this isn't a huge leap, this is kind of where the market's going.
Thank you.
Can I
Yes, Maureen.
That's a TOD development.
I couldn't remember.
Transit oriented development. Workforce housing is, the other ones we have as been commented are the other two. The one further up Fleming Road near Episcopal Road, and the one on the intersection of Bacon Lane.
Gotcha.
Those are the two first
Thank
workforce
you, Maureen.
housing. You asked for public comment. I'm sorry, I was trying to do some of the figuring out how to mute the one we had background noise on. If you remind people each time you ask for public comment, if they can unmute themselves, we're muting them when there's background noise, but they can unmute themselves and let you know they want to speak.
All right, did you happen to notice that anyone was interested, or did it seem like anyone from the public was interested?
I think it was background noise but you might want to call for that again for public.
So I'll make a call again to the public that's joined us. If you would like to comment on this portion of the presentation, I ask that you unmute your computer. But okay. All right, so now we'll just move on.
So, let's see if I can.
Can I just, would you want my comments on this now?
If
or-
you wish, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to point out, especially since you're discussing the parking ratio, is you'll notice in the staff comments on this, that the Capital Regional Council of Governments comments, I'm just gonna read the section on the comment, because I think it's easier to do it that way. The staff of the Regional Planning Commission of the Capital Region Council of Governments has reviewed this zoning referral and finds no apparent conflicts with the regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. Resulting traffic impacts from proposed densities appear to be adequately reviewed based on existing approval criteria. Staff encourages access to transit and incorporation of low impact development techniques as additional considerations for higher density development. Staff commends proposed parking reduction requirements, spelled wrong, I might add, but it is, but the intent is reduction requirements and maximizing the preservation of open space. So the point I wanted to make there was that the Capital Regional Council of Governments is supporting that reduction in parking. With regard to the separation of units, was whether there was any safety concern with regard to a reduction in the distance between units. I checked with the fire marshal and the building inspector. It would just be subject to code requirements if they fell within a certain distance of each other, as far as what it's not, there's no distance requirement there that would prohibit that reduction. We did have two other items we noticed as a staff. I don't think you mentioned the in section 11BB3 zoning requirements. It says a WFD housing site, and everywhere else it's referred to as WHD. We think that's a typo carried forward for workforce housing instead of workforce housing development, you know. an acronym misuse, as well as, just adding in section 3L4. The sentence just seems awkward. Looks like there should be an S after passenger so that it's parking facilities for both passengers and vehicles shall be convenient to building entrances, and we'd just like to make that correction at the same time. If you adopt the amendment to the regulations. And then I just want to comment that this applicant has been working with the staff for many months, particularly with Jim Mahoney with regard to language and consistency with workforce housing and the concept, the development, the ability to add the affordable units to town. We'll get more into that on other aspects of the plan in his presentation. But you might recall that at the May 21st meeting, we did present as a concept, and we're encouraged to pursue this. I think everything else. I'll point out that, and again, I'm sorry with the technology thing, I didn't pay attention to everything you've said, presented, and we talked so much, but then did provide us with the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority's 2019 multifamily design, construction, and sustainability standards for CHFA, and that those show the supporting documentation for some of his amendments. Probably more precisely address those if you want to, where to look for specifics on that. And I think the eligibility, part OT and part R43 is the key there. Did you address the contiguous parcels?
Not specifically.
Okay, so one of the things in one of the portions of the amendment is that currently the way the zone reads, it says a parcel, and contiguous parcels that they are assembling for the project, but they are parcels, and it doesn't seem apparent as to why someone would have to own all the parcels before they get an approval to then put them together for a project. Might not want to buy the parcel next door if you didn't get a project approved. So to have that as a single parcel seems like something that we might want to change. It made sense. It's understandable where that would come from. Just parking. Yep. And as far as consistency with this plan of conservation and development, I did not find from the staff viewpoint that these modifications to the workforce housing would create this amendment to be this section to be inconsistent with the PSC in our regulations, and the amendments would not affect its consistency.
Okay, let's move on to the
Great.
next portion.
So next we'll move into the application for zone change and site plan approval for on behalf of 823 Denning Road, proposed 88 unit workforce housing multifamily development located at 830. I'm going to just give a couple high level elements of the project before handing it over to Tom Daly, our civil engineer. We'll get more into the specifics of the engineered site plan, and then you'll hear from Tim Hollister with respect to the affordable housing component and how the units will qualify into the calculations for affordable housing. So I already gave the background. That's why I don't think we need to do that again. So first, what we are pursuing here is much more of a, I would say, a condo style design than an apartment design, in the sense that every apartment will have a separate entrance. The second floor units, it's not a common stairwell, it is a stairwell that's interior integral to the unit. We find that I would say it's this day and age, people are focused on that, but we have found historically, every project that we've done that's been an affordable housing project has had separate and distinct entrances directly from the outside. So that's just one aspect of our developments that's consistent. What you're seeing here, traditional, this is the exterior of the project is called Hunter's Ridge. It's in Unionville, Connecticut, and this is the same general architectural aesthetic that we've copied into this new project. So it's a traditional colonial exterior. We think will fit well into the town, but it is a updated and contemporary interior with style living. As I mentioned, we have a long-term focus on our, in our business plan where we continue to operate all of the properties that we developed historically, all of the properties in town, and the entire affordable portfolio that I mentioned is still under our ownership and operation. So with that in mind, we focus on high quality construction products that will last for a long time, granite countertops and kitchen, stainless steel appliances, plank flooring. So that is some design elements of the building itself. Here are the unit layouts, as I mentioned, large private back porch, back patio, I'm sorry, and generally speaking, these are the first floor apartments, just giving you a flavor of the layout. The second floor apartments not shown here have private balconies on the front of the front facade as opposed to patios on the rear. So with that, and I'm happy to take any questions at the end, but I'd like to turn it over to Tom to.
Thank you, Ben. Once again, for the record, Tom Daly with Mylon and the crew. I'd like to start with well, many of you are probably familiar with the site, but the site is located on Deming Road. And on this particular map, this is in your packet, it's the existing conditions and survey. We have, just to orientate you, is north is pointing right on the property. So to the south of our property, we have Deming Road. And to the west of the property, we have a connected wind power property, kind of considered the full farm up at the top of the hill. Off to the east of it, we also have the town of Berlin Cemetery, and then we have agricultural land to the north and then to the northeast. Subject parcel is actually 3 parcels together. It's about 11.3 acres of land. There's 2 single-family homes that are located in the front, directly adjacent to Deming Road, and then the remaining land in the back is primarily undeveloped. We do have some wetland resources on site, so down through the middle, or I guess the kind of middle corridor, there's about a 2.5 acre wetland corridor. It's associated with Cold Spring Brook. It's also called Little Brook. It has 2 different names. But that's a wetland corridor that's going through there. There is no floodplain located on the particular property. Just to the south of us, there is a large floodplain associated with the Mattabasset, but we're actually out of that. It's not on our parcel. One other thing is the town of Berlin does have a sanitary sewer line that runs right down through the wetlands. Not uncommon for sewers to run down through floodplains and the wetlands due to the low topography. We also do have a small wetland pocket that is located there. I'm not sure it was said on the record, but we have received the Wetlands Commission approval with our hearing last week, so we have full approval from that commission. The site has really 2 kinds of topography, or actually 3. The wetland is really just kind of dead flat, as you would expect with the wetlands. The area that we're proposing to develop is more of a rolling topography. The highest point of the site is located up by the CLMP property. It goes up to about elevation 84. And to give you a reference, Deming Road is about elevation 42. So we have about a 40-foot grade difference across this portion of the property. And then there's actually some fairly moderate to steep topography on the eastern border. We have almost a similar 40-foot grade difference, but it's done in a very short area as opposed to this almost very long area. As we studied this site for development and design, obviously certain things, the wetlands was an area that we weren't going to go in. And then also we had we stayed away from the steeper topography. This more rolling topography made a lot of sense as we worked into the site plan. And I'll come back to it later, but basically from the wetlands over is almost 4 acres of land that is not being developed. It's remaining as is. So to get that plan, this is a rendered, the same on your screen. It's a rendered site plan. It's the same packet that's or same plan that's in your packet. It just simply with some color added for clarity. But the way the plan is designed is we have a main entrance drive that comes off of Deming Road. And as I talked about that topography, we're trying to work with the topography. So we have a small portion of development that's at the lower topography, and then we use this road to climb up to the top of the grade. And what that did was we really were almost able to balance all the cuts and fills. There was anytime we try to balance, keep the fill and the cut on site, so we're minimizing truck traffic, we're minimizing costs, and we were able to actually really do that in a successful way. So what we do is we come off and we have a small little turnaround here. This is the area where we were asking for the text amendment. This small little curved area of parking is the area that's within the distance that we talked about. But once again, we're still almost 19 feet off of the property line, but actually if you measure to the curve that's been indicated, there's a fairly decent, almost 19 feet between our property line and the curb line. So that parking lot is still going to be set back almost 35 feet off the property line. So we have this kind of functions as a small little area, but we have this driveway as we start ramping up, but then we get into the main portion of the project. But what you don't see here is this project continues to terrace up the hill to the point where this is at one elevation, this is at another one. Really, we try to work with the topography so we works well. As Ben indicated, these are 8-unit buildings. We have 11 of those. Some are in a flat condition, some are slightly split to work with the topography. We also have some green space we worked into the project. So we have this central green, which we think is a great area to allow people to throw a frisbee or just kind of get out of their space. But this is the central green that we put in. We also have a central area in the back. And what we also are proposing, and the Wetlands Commission approved, is a walking trail that comes down through here, goes into the wetlands, and then comes back up. That's also part of the plan.
Question.
Yes.
Your last project, I noticed after you finished completely, you started putting up playscapes. You don't have any playscapes in this development?
We don't. And I think what we do see that is on the bigger density. So we're, at least for our plans, is when we're getting into 150, 200 units, that's where those playscapes are doing. But the CSHFA is looking for some outdoor, and your regulations call for some areas to get away. So we have also worked Lorero or CR3 as a studio Lorero, put together a very detailed planting plan, a lot of vegetation. They also helped us with some detailed plantings associated with stormwater management. We have worked through and we've met your standards in terms of stormwater management. We have 3 stormwater basins that are located along the perimeter. Those basins have been designed both for the DEP's water quality standard and also for quantity. So we modeled it for the 2 through the 100-year storm event, and the models and the basins were designed so we have no net increase in runoff for those storm events. Your town engineer did indicate that one of the storm events we were slightly over. We submitted revised calculations to show that one storm event was taken care of. I think this plan shows you a little better about where the stormwater basins would be. Also part of our plan, we've done a full, Metro does a wonderful job in terms of maintaining their properties. And this is a stormwater management plan that shows how to We can put them in place, but they need to be maintained over time. And this is a program that we've worked with Metro on all their projects, so they kind of know the drill. But these are the three basins, and then in this dash line is where we're showing this walking trail. It actually comes down, goes in just towards the basin, and then back up. And once again, to talk about how we're balancing the cuts and fills to minimize I got the site. We have elevation 50 here, elevation 66 here, and then I think we get up to elevation 76 here. So really doing a nice job to kind of work up the slope. And what that did was really the only retaining wall I believe we're proposing is just this one retaining wall between kind of this upper tier and lower tier. And while we did ask for a text amendment of 20 feet, the closest building is actually 24 feet apart. We gave ourselves a little buffer in terms of some of those things. And as Ben indicated, we actually did take a close look at sometimes projects get misbalanced. You have all the units in area and then parking kind of remote. Ben and I worked closely and came up with a plan to what we believe to be well balanced, especially with when we have the topography where it's stepping up. You want these areas to kind of work by themselves. With that concludes my presentation, but I'll be more than happy to answer questions now or later. Yes.
You took into concern the scope of the plan. I mean, all these units are second floors and internal staircase going to the second floor. Correct?
Yes.
Did we look into doing like Stony Mill, second floor, be a walk-in, from back, front, lower one, they'll be all ranch units basically?
To be honest with you, we worked with Metro on 5 different iterations on this project.
Yeah.
And that was actually one type of product we studied. It resulted in different challenges. And actually, Metro came up with this architecture, which has a smaller footprint and smaller units, and that was allowed me to achieve a similar goal to what you just said, but by going with smaller units. We looked at bigger units, and we were starting to look at that walkout, but how do people get out of that? And it just, the other thing is this is a single road. I think those tend to work well when you more have a loop road, because you come out on the high side and you come out on the low side, and this site was just, with the wetlands here, was not wide enough to do a loop. So I think we achieved those similar goals by having no exported material or minimal, and we did it by creating some architecture that fit the site as opposed to trying to fit the site to a certain type of architecture.
I know in Stony Mill was basically a 55 old complex, but that's why they went with ranch units.
Yeah.
I'm sure that ranch units be more profitable.
The other challenge with the, as you said, building it into the grade is that you end up with units on the first floor that are less desirable, that don't have all the natural light from all sides, because that portion of the building. We do focus on that and enter at ground level for every unit on our age restricted development. That's crucial there, but in a workforce housing development, I feel like this is overall good.
And what like you said, they need that loop road. So what happens then is you actually get more pavement. You know, you look at one, but it does work well in an age-restricted ranch style. But if you look at it, it's actually more pavement per unit than on it. This one's pretty efficient.
They're all units, no clubhouse.
No.
Walking trail that you have proposed, what will be the length of that? I mean, I'm just looking at it, is it a half-mile loop?
I don't. I have to.
That sound, yeah, 17.
I think it was like 1,750. We can get it.
So what's the project from the front to the back? On the map, it should tell you, and then there's a walking trail.
I'm pretty sure it was. I recall that you and I measured that. It was 1,750.
Yeah. That's what they have something in this part.
But I think,
Oh, yeah.
and if you combine that actually with the sidewalk system, you're gonna get a nice workout. There's a whole sidewalk along the road going all the way up to the back. So you did a loop around, if you did a loop around here and there's a sidewalk that runs all the way down through here, then you can get on the trail, come back, and everything, so it would, probably add up if you do a couple loops. We have a sidewalk that actually comes all the way down to Desert Road.
All right, commissioners, any questions before we go to the public?
Before we move on.
Yes.
Hold up. Mr. Daly, the topographic survey that you showed them in the stormwater management plan, do we have those via PDF? Because we need them to post.
They were submitted with the application. And the survey should be in the packet under existing conditions and separate, but yes, they were all submitted, because even the town engineer commented on it.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this portion of the presentation? Now would be a chance to comment or ask a question. I ask that you unmute. We have somebody, anyone already know?
I'm not seeing any, yeah, no, you're the one talking, I'm the one talking. I lit,
You're lit up.
I lit up.
Okay. We do have someone here who wishes to address the commission.
Thank you. Chris Edge, Economic Development Director. A couple things I wanted to mention. First is that the Economic Development Commission had met with, Jeff. Jeff is the principal of Metro Realty, Jeff Saber, sorry. We had met with him in 2019, and at that point we were talking about the concept for development here. One, a great discussion with him. I just want to mention something briefly from the minutes. Basically, we went to discuss his belief in the multifamily market, not just in Berlin, but throughout Greater Hartford. His market rate developments are attracting millennials with approximate income of $70,000 to $90,000 a year. These millennials are from a diverse geography, with almost 75% of them coming from outside Hartford County and 40% from outside Connecticut. Due to the great employment opportunities at firms such as Eversource, Comcast, UTC, Cigna, ESPN, and Stanley Works, this is a great product for Connecticut. Generation like smaller spaces with amenities and neighborhood people. The reason I mention that is he was able to educate the Economic Development Commission, as I believe this commission was also educated for Mr. Orsini, that the new developments are basically geared towards millennials and empty nesters. The goal of them, both the finishes and the price point, are not geared towards family. I think it is important. I know that the Economic Development Commission itself is definitely supportive of housing for millennials, because I know talking to our major employers, especially manufacturers, they're dying for every millennial they can find. If they're living in Berlin, they can work in Berlin. It's a dual benefit. I think this is tremendous because it's getting us closer to our 10% break 30G. It is going to be 20% affordable and 80% market, which is tremendous, and if all goes well with the financing, we'll get credit for 100%. The last thing is, I've talked to a couple different millennials over the span of the last couple of years. I've been looking at these numerous developments. What each of them told me was a similar story. What they mentioned to me is that an apartment helps a millennial or a couple who are looking to start a family or buy a home to test drive a community. Give them an ability to be here for a couple of years, see what the community's like before buying a house. And these are going to be first-time home buyers that hopefully, if all goes well, buy a home in Berlin. Let's say an empty nester sells their house. They go into a house that hasn't been touched or done much since the 80s. Roof, flooring, but the rest, new families to come in. And I think that's important to think about. It's not just what happens, it's the next step. Because we're a great community, but if you look at it, the community definitely on the older side. If you can bring in young people, young energy, I think it's tremendous. And knowing the fact that what Metro has done has been great projects we can be proud of, I think it's great that we have this, and we'd love to be support.
Yes, Ms. Joyce?
Would you please just clarify for the record the
Yes.
reason for the redaction?
It was something that was not applicable to this meeting tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was something that it was an issue that came up at the time. I would say it's probably controversial to some degree. I didn't want to be part of this because it's not. And it was something the commission said, no, we don't like it. So it never went beyond that commission. I think one thing I did forget to mention was in mid-2018, I believe, I went out with our planner at that time, Eric Kozakowski. We went up to a development called the Residences at Oakland Road. It is a development that Metro had done in South Windsor, very similar to this. The mix was the same. 20% affordable, 8% market. We walked through some of the units, the regular, the affordable, they were incredible. I looked at them and realized I've never looked at anything like that, and I know what the product they're gonna put out there, it's gonna look a lot like that, and I'm excited about it. Because I've been there, I can speak and say, look, this makes a lot of sense, which is why, again, the discussion started when Miracle's still here, and Maureen has done a great job to carry the ball. So that's kind of my thoughts, and thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, any last questions on this portion before we go to the last portion of the presentation? Right? Oh, no, it's a
Well,
site plan.
yeah, we would like to have Hollister, remarks regarding that.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Attorney Capola, thank you for all your help with these tonight. Just to kind of convince you of how old I am, my first time appearing before this commission was in 1983 when Nunzio Rosso, a wonderful gentleman, was the chair.
Sir, I'm already.
I'm sorry. And he was a great gentleman and a public servant, and we became friends, and I learned a lot from him. But to the business at hand, I want to tell you very candidly that over the past 20 years, the affordable housing community in the state of Connecticut has looked to the town of Berlin as a leader in affordable housing. You have encouraged and permitted and assisted the development and the construction of lower cost units, and nobody has gotten a free ride. I mean, Tom Daly and I and Ben have been involved here on many occasions doing developments, and it always gets a rigorous review. Mark was here before him. It gets a rigorous review, high standards, quality materials, and it's done well. And because of that, you have achieved 2 moratoriums, and now you are on the cusp of a really remarkable achievement, which is detailed in Mr. Mahoney's memo from a couple of weeks ago, which is that you could become only the 4th town in the state of Connecticut to achieve your way onto the 10% exempt list from 830G, which is just really a remarkable thing. After 30 years, only 4 towns have done it. And now the numbers work out not exactly, but very closely. And I think with a couple of tweaks here and there, you will achieve that milestone, and that will be a very commendable thing. And Metro Realty has been your quality partner in getting there, and it's been my pleasure to work with them for more than 26 years. I know we already covered the text amendment, but my role in this application was to review the text amendment just sort of from a legal standpoint to make sure all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. Then I also specifically went through the affordability standards and the sections. And I will tell you it does comply with 830G. This will be an assisted housing development. 100% of the units will qualify on the 10% list, and I think that's pretty clear. The one wrinkle, which I just will put on the record, no one can predict exactly how this is going to shake out, but 830G is all of the numbers and the percentages are based on the decennial census. Just keep in mind, Mr. Mahoney actually picked up on this. There's going to be a reset in 2021. I don't, when we reset in 2010, it was not a earth-shaking change. Just the numbers will adjust when we go from the 2010 census to the 2020 census. But I think because everything is compliant, you should be just fine. Just do record so nobody comes back a year from now and says, "Why didn't you tell us?" But anyway, so the affordable housing component of the application complies with state law. You will get the credit you will deserve, and you deserve a lot of credit. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, one last before we go on to the portion.
So I will just remind that our architect and traffic engineer are both participating virtually, so they don't have the formal presentation prepared for you this evening. Please any questions about traffic or architecture.
I have a question, and that's going back, perhaps it's the architecture. that I will address is that when we first started, you started the presentation, you talked about having a separate entrance for the upstairs units and the downstairs, or is it one unit that has an upstairs and a downstairs?
Let me show you. So every unit, every apartment in the project is all flat, so they're all single story.
Okay.
What you have, and you can see it most clearly here, is each, so here you have 4 apartments, 2 upstairs and 2 downstairs. They're all accessed from the ground floor. One, you open the door and you walk right into your apartment. The other, you walk in and you're greeted by a stairwell to your flat. So it is a second floor apartment accessed by a private stairwell with single floor living.
And as, as far as the architecturals go, are the porches that you see there in this photo, are they also porches on the back side of the units or the front side?
So the second floor apartments have balconies like that on the front side of the building. And then on the rear side is a patio for the first floor. So if you have a first floor unit, whether it's a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, you've got a ground floor private patio on the back side of the apartment. If you're a second floor, then you have the private balcony on the front. Every unit has private outdoor space.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do we want to then go on to the site plan application? Or?
Yeah, that was all.
That was all sort of coupled in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go back to the public and see if there's anyone else who wishes to ask a question or comment on this proposal. Now would be your chance to address the commission.
And if I may, don't forget to unmute yourselves if you want to speak.
So.
I'm trying to unmute everyone to make sure that they could speak just in case somebody's having difficulty with that. So if you bear with us for a second while we find that command.
Sadly, that sounds.
Is there which is to address the application? I would take that as a. Oh, geez, all right, Commissioner, I'm gonna come back to you if there's any last questions, I know that this is. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to the commission and see if they have any last questions. And Maureen, do you have any input at this point?
I do have some things that I'd like to add to the record.
While you're looking for that, Mr. Woolman has a.
What they're requesting, how is this affecting other parcels in town?
With regard,
The whole thing. Well, like, with them making text amendments, we always want to make sure that we're not bouncing all over town with these type of requests. and affecting other properties. So
Oh,
when
affecting
we
other
looked into that
properties.
and what are the
So-
properties it might affect.
We did early on, and I'm trying to, let me get back to my brain, back to there, I'm sorry, I was thinking about the abutters that were commented, and my head's there. It is a very specific amendment to the regulation that allows the OT part R43 very specifically. So this was the only identification of a property that we were focused on. There may be one area down Beckley Road that could also potentially, it's fairly developed, however, and doesn't see the rest of the criteria. Again, we did,
In my analysis, there were no other parcels.
no other.
Thank you. Because that's always a concern. As you can
Yeah.
imagine,
Was there other properties before the amendments that would?
No, there's only one other property that has workforce housing.
I was just
Yeah.
wondering, because when you do that kind of thing, it's so specific, but not specific. And, you're worried about that too.
Yeah, so
Sides of it.
of course, there are other potential areas through assemblage that could.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to know, because, we don't want to make sure we affect another parcel that, this would be.
Unintended consequences.
Yeah, that's a good word. I got multiple words. Thank you, Maureen.
Maureen, I don't have the zoning map in front of me, so I'm not sure, but hypothetically, say Cold Spring Farm decides to stop growing vegetables and they're right next door. Is that the same zone?
It's all OT, I believe.
I'm just curious,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
that's a big parcel of land, and that,
So I have, let me
And I
pull
think
this up.
you need 900 feet frontage.
They don't have it.
oh, okay.
Chris, I think they sold the development.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
That's
Oh, to the state?
Yeah, I don't know to the state or to the town or both, but
Okay.
it was,
So they shut that down, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Great, thank you, that answers.
we're good, Maureen.
I do have I have a text question, about the minimum distance between any two residential structures, excluding decks and patios, should be brought down to 20 feet. But on this, maybe I'm just not seeing it, but on this proposal, is there of this development, this site plan that you are at that 20 feet?
We're at 24 is the closest that the two closest buildings are.
Oh, okay, that's between 4 and 5.
Yeah, there's a couple locations that are 24 to 25, but, we also want to give a little buffer room in case there's an overhang or something like
Yeah.
that. So we didn't want to get so close that we got to something.
Yeah,
But we gave, it's 24 to 25 are the closest, a couple of them.
okay, the reason I ask is that I'm not sure how I feel about the 20 feet being in the text amendment. And I don't know if that's a concern for the other commissioners. And then looking at the plan and not seeing that you're utilizing it makes me wonder why we would do that. Bring it down to 20 feet,
I think
really.
the discussion was 20 was already in your regulation, it was a conflict in another portion of regulation, correct?
Correct. There's
Is
in
that what it was?
the bold requirements, you'll see that the minimum distance between buildings is 20 feet. And then on the Fieldstone Crossings development, there is a location where the two buildings are exactly 20 feet apart.
I just needed somebody to clarify.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Clarify my mind,
Oh,
that you
okay.
said it's got a frontage on, Deming Road. Because there's a piece of property between this property and Orchard Ridge for sale, that probably could be developed similar. That's what I'm saying, if it's Deming Road frontage, it can't be developed. Similar to this.
I'm not sure what parcel.
It's a little road, as soon as, before you get into, take a left on the road, just past this, left, Cold Springs.
Bacon?
Bacon
No,
Lane?
the next, and they put new traffic light up on the house.
Colby
Colby Road.
Colby Road.
Colby Road. If you take a left there's a piece of property, I don't know, Mr. Edge brought it to our attention that, a lady wanted to develop it. And that's in the same area, so if it's Deming Road frontage only, that piece can't be developed this way.
Colby Road, Rocky Hill?
No, it's in Berlin, it's actually OT.
But the road is Rocky Hill.
Yeah.
The property's in Berlin OT, it's OT property,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm asking. And this would be a good development for that OT property. Workforce development, restricting the Deming Road only.
The Deming
That
Road was,
possibly can't do it.
the Deming Road was an existing, restriction in the reg, it's not something.
Changing that right now.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. Let's hands up. Let's focus on this. Let's not jump to other
If I
developments.
may, I did do a little searching as to the history of the property in this corner of town because I knew that there had been some zone changes from R43 and to OT and back and forth, and I found in 1990 and through, I still have it pulled out, I thought I had it on the desk. 1990, the parcel was all along the easterly border, north of Deming Road was PR zone, PR1, and the development of Webster Street that comes in from Newington, that is on Webster Street, is a PR, which is another multifamily development up there. I thought that would be of interest to the commission. It was then changed to OT. With the properties that had residential structures on them excluded from that OT amendment after the 2003 or in conjunction with the 2003 POCD, the OT was expanded, but excluded the residential structures as well as residential properties near Selden Street that have since been changed. So it's kind of, from my perspective coming in and trying to look back, being defined, what works there, what should work, and zoning has maybe not settled in any one type of zone.
Well, went to OT because it's CLP or these utilities, and they don't want this technology for that area. The CLP building, that's what's looked at. And then Orchard Ridge came in to do a great job. But that started the area different again. To this area.
And since that time, we have the stone bridge across the street as well as the other workforce housing at River's Edge. Kind of change the flavor from the overall perspective.
The only other comment I have is something, Maury and I talked about this today, is that I really wish we could come up with a different kind of concept. I don't know, for some reason, it just minimizes what you're trying to do here. I think of it like professional housing. We're talking about that. I don't know if that's a state thing or we have to go higher up.
I was explaining to her that it's an industry term and one that is referred to in this type of zoning for this type of.
The Russian history just
Or changing the vernacular.
I have one other thing with stuff with this property. Come out of Rocky Hill, come around that corner, both to that corner, the major accidents there. Has police commission do that?
I think
We received no comment.
And I will say, measured the 500-foot sightline direction. There is some significant overgrowth into the point there. So we're contemplating trimming and clearing 100-foot sightline, and all occurs on our property or in the right of way.
That'll help a lot there.
But you gotta remember that they gotta come back to us.
Yeah, that's,
This is just,
that's
that's,
true,
that
they still
means
got
nothing until we
yeah.
get to
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
the building.
You're right.
And these guys.
You're right. Well, at least they know it out fast, they'll address it before they bring it back.
Okay, all right, so, are we, oh,
I have some
stuff you want.
things to share, if I can give us staff comments. They're a little bit things, and the fact that the packages were in several clumps. The duration of the August 6th meeting, it created a lot of paperwork, or a lot of paper to manage. So out and more concisely describe the area. The Eversource campus is just to the west of the property, and immediately adjacent is the outdoor training area, which was shown at the top of the screen when Ben was sharing the layout. It is a training area where Eversource does outdoor training with their personnel and may have activities that neighbors might enjoy watching, or they may not, but that's something they felt maybe would be, should be noted, and as an existing condition that's at the property. And that's on the west side of the property. On the east side is a farm, Old Spring Farm, as we discussed, to the east, and we did receive a letter from them, which I have to share. Did have to share. Here it is. Past that. It'll be posted on the website tomorrow. Dear Maureen, the proposed residential development project being planned by Metro Realty abuts land owned by CSBF LLC, who has entered into a lease arrangement with Old Spring Brook Farm, Inc. Said property is used for an agricultural enterprise producing greenhouse and vegetable crops. CSBF LLC wishes to add to the record that such agricultural activities involve heavy equipment operating at all hours, including after sunset and before sunrise, pesticide applications in close proximity to the proposed development, and a crop protection license that allows hunting all year. It should also be noted that all aspects of crop production, including livestock production, are potentialities for this property. We wish to make the scope of our agricultural activities public and on the record in the event that any current or future tenant, manager, or owner of this residential development enters objections to those activities. We would also like to suggest an extended buffer zone between our property and the proposed development, as well as a fence to keep residents of the development from wandering onto our property. Sincerely, Stephen Bankston, Michael Christensen, Eric Peterson, CSBF LLC, 15 Stonehenge Drive, Newington, Connecticut, 06111. And that email was received today. We also received correspondence that you had gotten in your package from, and was posted from Susan Gullett, who's a neighbor across Deming Road from the property. Her property actually is on Beckley Road, Weathersfield Road. We changed names there. I'm sorry. Weathersfield Road. She has since, I called her after Ben shared a correspondence he had with her, and called her to confirm that I could share that correspondence. Hi, Ben. It was very nice meeting you as well. Yes, this sounds like an agreeable plan. Looking forward to working with you in the future. Susan Bullock, 685, 687 Weathersfield Road.
We're watching on TV.
Is someone trying to speak?
Is there someone trying?
Kyle Richards?
No, it's calling.
Oh, call in user 19. I'm remuting.
Okay.
It should be muted. Ben had met with her after getting her initial correspondence of concerns of the driveway and the impact of the application. It was very nice meeting you today. As discussed, we received your letter dated August 6, 2020, in which you expressed concerns about the proposed 80 unit multifamily development at 833 Deming Road. After talking today, it seems your main concern is that once the project is occupied, the headlights of cars that are exiting the development could potentially shine onto your property. With this in mind, we are willing to plant up to 10 evergreen bushes/trees on your property in the area we discussed today in an effort to provide landscape screening for you. Such planning will be completed prior to the completion of construction of our development. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time with questions or concerns regarding our project at 833 Deming Road, etc. So I wanted to enter that into the record that the developer has extended that offering to the abutting property owner. And that's the correspondence we received. I'm going to go for my staff report, and then I'm going to go back to some additional comments I'd like in the record. As back to the regard to the map amendment and the site plan itself, the consistency with the plan of conservation and development. Goal 4 of the 2013 update of the plan of conservation and development states the town shall work to preserve the current balance of housing stock while infusing any new growth with a sense of traditional neighborhood design, compatibility with adjacent uses, and ownership options that support housing choice for people of diverse ages and needs. The 2013 POCD also identifies age restriction housing options as probably peaked, while noting the progress towards diversifying towards an affordable base of housing units needs to be continued with the percentage being so close to the state requirement, etc. End quote. And that's on the POC pages 4-5. And noting that in the purpose of the workforce housing option, it provides that multifamily housing that, quote, qualifies as assisted housing development as defined by Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G(A)(3) and is designed to ensure a high-quality residential environment that is compatible with adjacent and neighboring commercial and residential uses. So from the staff standpoint, I'm reading this as this being an option that meets the criteria that was recommended in the last plan of conservation and development for diversifying the housing stock while also meeting the affordability standards that we're striving for. Wanted to note that I did receive written comment from Mike Ahern, town engineer, that his comments with regard to the drainage were addressed, and he has no further comment on the proposal. He's satisfied. Inland Wetlands did approve the project. We've got that report as well. We referenced earlier Jim Mahoney's memo of May 19th and noting the affordability guidelines, how close we are to the 10% goal, and this will bring, as presented, the project would be counted in towards that goal because they plan to meet that that standard of the statute. and that the unit count, or rather our goal may go up with the census, and we have to keep that in mind. Those comments. For the record, the Conservation Commission had made comments with regard to the turtle management plan, and Mr. Tripp had responded to that as being within the management plan itself and the state. Could you explain that a little bit about the management plan for the record?
Yeah, so, yeah, this is, sorry, should include this one early because it's strategic. But, this project will require a DEP permit, and which is basically a registration for erosion control. Any project over 5 acres, you have to register within 60 days, part of that. Well, part of that application is you have to check, basically the state has a natural diversity database on endangered species of special concern, and threatened species. So what we had to do was and if you went into the database, there was a hit in this area. You don't know what the animal is or the species, so we have to send a letter up to DEP. It came back that there was a turtle potentially down in the wetland area. So we've done this a 1,000 times before. It's a fairly common, I think it's eastern box turtle, but fairly common thing. So we have developed a narrative of how to deal with that. That's a standard language that we put on plans. We actually already were prepared to do that. Basically, it requires this is when you start the job, you put a silt fence in so no turtles get into the construction site. And every morning before they start up the equipment, somebody's gonna walk along the perimeter. If they see a turtle, they're gonna pick the turtle up and they're gonna put the turtle on the other side of the fence. So we have turtle patrol, correct. That is what has to happen. So yeah, they'll walk along that site once the silt fence get big up, the turtles will be able to do whatever they want. But that's the plan. And that's been, like I said, that is a proven DEP approach to this turtle. I don't think it's even, I think it's just special concern. I don't think it's endangered or threat. But if you look on our plans, I believe on the erosion control plan, it walks you through line by line what the turtle management plan is. So we were kind of a little bit ahead of the game in terms of yes. So if you want to do some good reading on SC1, lower right, there's a turtle management plan for you to read. But that, we typically don't submit that letter to DEP until we get our local approvals, but we saw it was an issue. It came up as a hot point on their website, and we kind of did it earlier instead of later.
Good for you. The turtles too.
I made the comment earlier from the building inspector with regard to the separation of the buildings not being an issue and with result of building materials and code requirements only, and he changed that. But he also noted that a percent of the units would have to be able to be modified for accommodation, handicap accommodation if necessary. That's part of the code, and I'm sure that Metro Realty has dealt with that before, but it's just a fact that they would go through the building inspector with regard to that. Here was satisfied with those drainage comments. I would just add, if you approve, that staff comments, standard staff comments be addressed, including submission of a bond, and the calculation made and submission thereof. The erosion control measures should be, I want to note, should be in place prior to any site disturbance. That again seems to be something we're having a little bit of trouble with some of our developers. So just wanted on the record, and developers hear that said out loud, should it be approved. The parcels, I would recommend that regardless of it being contiguous parcels or not, and that our parcels do merge prior to permitting. That's needs all up that it's on a single parcel project. I know it was already noted that the inland wetlands approved plans on August 12th. And one comment that I had just from the staff standpoint that I didn't get a chance to address or to discuss with Ben before presentation was, when I looked at the plans, I wondered if perhaps a loop of the walking trail could come out closer to the units at the north end of the site so that it kind of created a bigger loop. I didn't know if that was a design thing or something that maybe if they had modifications to the walking trail, if the commission would entertain staff being able to sign off on those rather than them add a bit longer a loop or another way to get into that loop from the units that are further back from the driveway. And that would be all right. I think I hit it.
Before we close,
Make no notes.
concluding remarks, so thank you, everybody. Thank you all for hearing us this evening and for your time. And just to clarify what we're seeking from you this evening, there's 3 items. It's the text amendment, the zone change, and the site plan application. Greatly appreciate if you take those under decisions. Thank you.
Just for housekeeping, because not all of the documents have been posted on the website, we have to put public hearing open until the public has an opportunity to view what gets uploaded from today.
So their whole submission, it was uploaded in the meeting documents. The package that you have in your folder, that was all there, which includes, I believe, the plans that you shared, perhaps not at that scale, and with maybe a little bit of marking on them that you might have had on your plan because it's in color. The one you brought here, right? Did
Yeah,
you
the
have
only
shading?
difference, this is color, that's all, but it's all.
But it's the same plan. I believe I read everything else and or it had been posted today. Things that are gonna get posted tomorrow, I believe I read out.
We have the submission from economic development that was not read into the record. I want to be sure that we don't close prematurely. And as to the submission from economic development, I think for the sake of transparency, it would probably be best if the document was submitted without the redaction, just so that people see in fact that what was redacted really has nothing to do with this application. Just highlight the pertinent sections of that text as original was submitted.
It's public knowledge. I just looked it up on economic development, what website it's there.
I will note that those are straight from the minutes. They are just not to be negative or anything about doing that. That is fine. That can certainly be done because they are on the website in their entirety because it is the minutes of that meeting that are posted. And as would be typical, like I probably would have taken the minutes and said portion of the minutes concerning this item and then copied and pasted it onto a document so that you guys will just have that as well. Not uncommon for us to only hand out those pages that are related to the items.
Just that,
so,
you know,
and that we will do that. We will do that.
Any other concerns?
Jennifer, you want to conclude that has an issue with the.
I haven't seen them.
Oh, I don't mean the documents, I mean the fact that everything that was talked about wasn't.
I mean, we read the letter. There was no concern with
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
Attorney Capoli, I think what you and I are sort of being asked collectively, we would agree that they close the hearing. I think they can't do this, or it said the plan didn't change, and the fact that it was essentially an endorsement from the Economic Development Commission is not new information.
Yeah, I noted, the additions that need to be posted. I mean, in terms of the one revised slide, everything was stated, in terms of the content of that slide. And, Mr. Daly confirmed in terms of the topographic survey and the stormwater management plan that those PDFs were submitted and the plan was put on the website. And we had the letter from, Goldsbury Farm, but she read that, or the email rather, that was received, and that was received today at 12:40 p.m. She read that in its entirety, so she didn't have a copy of it, she read it in its entirety, so no concern there. I think it's fine.
Okay. I don't know, so we have agreement from all sides. Okay, great. So do we have a, oh, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No.
Motion.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Okay, Mr. Ziegler, yes, motion on 3 items. We have a second. Second by Ms. Joseph. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. Okay, move on. All right, the next item under the public hearings is the proposed amendments to the Berlin zoning regulations regarding the outdoor storage industrial zones. All right. Do we have stuff on this, Maureen?
I think what's being added on this will come from our corporation council.
Okay,
Just give me one second to get
all right, no problem. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a chance to pull it up. It's the handy now. So that.
Thank you.
So one is
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
we need to wait, listen.
Oh, we're missing Curtis.
Everything before that.
We still have more.
8:45.
Yeah.
I'll bring up to speed.
Oh, yeah, for everyone. It's not, that's not what comes up for everyone.
All right, so we can talk about, we're talking about right now, industrial, outdoor, in industrial. What's that?
That's why you're here.
I can see it. Okay. This is in.
So you'll recall at your last meeting on July 16th, that I went through your industrial zone reg in its entirety, the entire section 7. And what you're seeing up on the screen, it's being shared with those who are participating in video, concerned that people can't hear me, that are participating remotely. So you'll recall that I took you through, section 7 of your regs, again, the industrial portion of the regs in its entirety. I had highlighted certain portions of the section to point out to you inconsistencies in the language. And ultimately, we went through that all. That's something that has been posted on the website. I don't think it's necessary. I think it took me at least 10 minutes last time, and I spoke very quickly to get through it, to take you through it all. I think, again, we've been discussing proposed amendments to this section of the regs now over the course of months. And ultimately, I'll ask if Maureen could share the red line copy.
Do my best. Sorry. But I have both on that same slide. This one.
Yes.
It is that one, that we, on February 6th? Or is there a subsequent one received on February 6th?
There's a subsequent one also.
Yeah.
You can go into the website. It's included in, I think, the meeting packet one. It's not the red line version, but that's fine. You've got to go back out to the link for the meeting. Yeah, with it, yeah, down.
Sorry for the delay, everyone. Technology.
There we go. This is it. Okay, so what you're seeing up on the screen, again, and everyone had a copy in their packets, are the proposed amendments at this point. We've got in section 7C3E, which is your GI2 zone, a change in contractor shops. We see a similar change in section 73G, also for contractor shops. And specifically, the last portion of that provision, it's subsection E and section C3, and it's subsection G and section D3. Striking specifically excluding and adding after the outside parking lot trailers that only be permitted pursuant to such conditions as the commission may impose. So that you're seeing that language for both the GI2 and then industrial. Additionally, that same language, and I should have pointed this out, is appearing, the same amendments are appearing in 7E3M. You see that at the bottom of the page, and it continues over again for contractor shops. As far as the other two changes, for planned industrial and for planned industrial 2, it's subsection 5. D5 in, land industrial, and it's E5, in, the land industrial 2. We're adding, that, at the end of, subsection A of each, all permitted operations and related storage except for the parking of motor vehicles shall be conducted within a building except in accordance with section 7D4F and or section 7G3. And that brings me down to page 2. You can scroll down.
Fine.
Biggest area of amendment is section 7G3, which are the general requirements, all industrial zones. And much of the language that you see here is cleanup. So a lot of it, remains initially similar to what we have. But outside storage, including the storage of merchandise, supplies, machinery, and or other materials. So we added and or other materials. Directly related to the operation of the principal use may be permitted in the town's general industrial and planned industrial zones. So we eliminated general industry, planned industry, office, laboratory. That language is no longer used. Subject to site plan approval by the commission in accordance with section 13. Outside storage areas shall not extend into the area required for setback from the street line and or into the required side yards adjacent to any non-industrial zone. Outside storage and we added to the enclosure language, so now it means outside storage area shall be enclosed by buildings, fences, walls, landscape, berms, evergreen shrubs or trees, and or other acceptable structures or screening as determined by the commission, so as to provide a suitable screen for adjacent lots, streets. And I struck that next sentence there because it's included the requirement, again, of it being subject to site plan approval, has been moved up, because that's really something that should be in the beginning of the section, of course. In no case, and this is something that for some discussion again in prior meetings, in no case shall stored merchandise, supplies, and or materials exceed the height of the screening. And the commission has discretion to require ground barriers and storage covers. That's in there where appropriate is superfluous, of course. That you're going to decide your discretion. And then we ended up striking that next sentence, as you see, because there was a tweak that was suggested by your chair last time, which the elimination of would result in it being in conflict with other provisions. So that next sentence is completely struck at this point. Because staff and I were back to look at what the chair had proposed to eliminate. It did present a conflict. So, and finally, in this last sentence was something that was recommended by the planner, I think, going back now some months, but proper access to all buildings shall be maintained at all times, and outside storage shall not interfere with access or required parking. So that's where we are on this. And I know that you have received some comments regarding a specific property, which is Palmer Street property that is the subject of litigation, specifically having to do with an application that was not heard by the city because they had already previously acted. Let me just, I have only one comment with regard to that. I want you to understand this up front, that Commerce Street Holdings, their counsel, the party themselves in that litigation had nothing to do with the draft of the they did not see, these proposed changes until after the last. I did not consult with them. These amendments were proposed as a result of the discussions that staff and I had with you over the course of. So I want to make that very clear. They did not see the proposed amendments until after that. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
I just have
Yes.
one thing comes to mind, and I'm not certain that we've addressed it, and maybe because we would have an opportunity to approve storage, when we're reviewing the site plan. Is there any discussion or prohibition on, the trailers, like with the refrigerator units that are parked overnight with engines running, the cooling units running, that were a noise issue?
You're asking me whether there's any prohibition.
Is there language in here that would prohibit that, or is that just something that would be a consideration when we do the site?
I think that would fall under the conditions, that the commission would.
Not our discretion.
Yeah.
And I want to just question you about something or today, and I know we're going to have so many, but we do have an experience. So, you know, and it's important to keep in mind too, that when you are passing, obviously, but, you know, this is not applying to just one property.
No, I understand that, and I'm just thinking in general terms, that that's a circumstance that we've dealt with in the past. We certainly have the potential to deal with it in the future, and maybe it's better to nip it in the bud.
So, in terms of what? Because the language that you have here, again, a member just pointed this out, but it affords you quite a bit of discretion. You know, and I will say this too, in terms of the nuisance issue, what is, you know, there's other laws that can address that too.
Well, I know noise ordinances or the state noise statutes are not enforced. And, you know, the state statutes talk about decibels and vehicles that are moving versus stationary and all of that. I work for the agency that is supposed to be enforcing it, and I can tell you they do not have a person in that position to do enforcement. So, as long as the latitude is there for the commission to address that, that's my only concern.
And I think we've covered it. I think with adding, you know, that it shall only be permitted pursuant to conditions that you pose. Again, talk about the outside parking of trailers for those that are participating remotely. I think you've got certainly the discretion.
You eliminated the tractor trailers staying over merchandise. They won't be running refrigeration units if there's no merchandise. One of the
Are there other concerns of this? Again, I think you just need to keep in mind what you've gone through it tonight again. You have conflicts in your language, and that's a problem.
Well, I think the language or the adjustments to the language has afforded the commission more latitude. And that's a good thing because, we are not anti-business, however, we also believe in good neighbors. And sometimes you just have to take the neighbors into account to see how it's going to impact their lives. One way or another, you know, every single day. So, but I think there's enough latitude now in the regulations.
I mean, we talked about this at one point, it wasn't at the last meeting, but Stephen discussed this, about the issue of the typical complaints that we get on commercial properties. And the blight complaints typically arise from very limited conditions, and it's usually related to outside storage.
Maureen, did you have anything or you're just thinking?
No, just thinking, I was looking for the wording that we worked on changing a couple of times ago, and I wanted to make sure that that, was, yeah, we were still on the same page. I was thinking of in relation to the concern with the, outdoor storage. We do have the way some of the business uses have evolved, and it is because industry has evolved in what they do in many cases with regard to the operations. And one of the things that the regulation that was problematic in many ways here was the contractor shops and the outdoor storage. And I think one of the reasons you added contractor shops in certain zones with the language that you did was to get them out of people's yards and out of the residential zones, because running their landscaping businesses from their garages, et cetera. And it afforded an opportunity for people to stay in town and have their business in town as well, without being in violation of their yards. And the commission having discretion to put parameters on the storage of their vehicles and equipment or goods will be an asset, because it will give zoning more ability to look at something and say, no, that's in violation, because your approval said you would have this with this screening and not be in your parking spaces for many months of that before.
Well, we are in a public hearing, so I will ask the public if they are interested in addressing the commission regarding the text amendment proposals. Yes, we have somebody who's actually here, so I ask you to state your name. All right, I'm sorry, you'll have to move over.
Yeah, maybe
I'll tell you, if you go here.
If you're here, then your finger is there, so if you stand kind of where Ben was.
And you can actually be masked if you want, but you're socially more than distance from all of us. This way we can hear you clearly. You're welcome.
Son, 167 Redwood Lane, Sterling. Before I go on, I couldn't hear Jennifer that well. Can you just repeat, please, what you said, what prompted the text changes?
The inconsistency in the regs. Again, there was a highlighted copy that was shown at the last meeting that was also uploaded to the town's website. Specific language inconsistency of regs.
Okay, this is about litigation. So thank you for listening to me tonight. I am a neighbor, essentially, industry zone. So when I use the pronoun we in my speech, I'm referring to me and my residential neighbors who live next to a PI zone. I have concerns with these proposed storage amendments result in noise problems, view issues, and conflicts of interest. We received the proposed verbiage less than 3 weeks ago. This was as of August 4th. The day after the July 16th PNC meeting. So I cannot say there's conflicting verbiage in the current town of Berlin zoning regulations that need clarifying and editing. But I don't have enough time to cross-reference zoning sections. The proposed verbiage is difficult to understand, especially more so with the strikeouts. Also specifically, it's hard to understand how these potential amendments can affect and add to unresolved and existing storage, noise, and heat problems with companies from existing storage restrictions and conditional uses in place. For over 4 years, my neighbors and I have been having problems with climate engineering, AKA transit coal carrier, or she referred to as Commerce Holdings, I think it was before, at 86 Commerce Street, East Berlin, Connecticut, with negative view, storage, and noise issues. As you may recall, in late 2015, they illegally removed the required buffer of several mature trees after receiving approval for 2009 conditional use variance to keep the buffer. There is no buffer to this day. I would propose a site amendment to allow them to use refrigeration trailers 24/7, 365. This was denied by the P&Z Commission in May 2019. We have illegally stored and operated on an unapproved clear buffer lot. They used the area to park trucks from 2016 until February 2019, or their May 2019 P&Z meeting. They used that same lot as recently as August 4th, 2020, but discussed that later. In April 2020, they used that lot to receive and store these big metal squares, so big that a front loader was used to load them off the truck. I supplied Maureen Juicy a video and pictures as proof that they continue to violate the 2009 conditional use variance, and after cease and desist orders were served. The metal squares were still there in June 2020, so they still use and store items where they illegally shouldn't. Along with the cleared buffer, they illegally use another building on their site, 30 Common Street, for storage. I previously supplied pictures to the town commission showing that, and I can supply them again upon your request. Both this clear buffer lands in building were purchased by Climate in 2015. Climate engineering research cease and desist orders pertaining to use of this building. These violations with legal action. Also, per the variance, they required a maximum number of 20 stored items on the lot. I previously presented pictures as evidence of them exceeding the storage of previous P&Z and ZBA meetings over the years, and they are part of the town records regarding climate engineering. I can supply them again upon your request. These are your pictures and stuff. We continue regulations of Connecticut State Agencies RCSA 2280-174-18 with the idling of vehicles for more than 3 minutes and often run motors for several hours at a time despite the day and time. They also store running refrigeration units and some motors overnight. I previously supplied police reports pertaining to noise as evidence of previous P&Z and ZBA meetings over the years, and they are on the town record as well. I can supply them again upon your request. It just happened on Sunday, July 12th at 7:46 p.m. Sunday, July 12th, with the truck running for 1.5 hours. I had the videos proof that was coming from Climate. Again, on Sunday, July 26th, 2020, with the truck kicking out every 2 hours, running for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. I first started at 6:25 p.m. since I got home at 6 p.m. The last cycle ended at 8:25. The motor was so loud the noise penetrated the walls of my house. The overnight noise just happened on August 4th, 2020. I got home at 5:25 p.m. and instantly heard the noise. By 7:25 p.m., they were constantly running for 2 hours and probably longer. I went over to confirm and saw 2 to 3 trailers with refrigeration units, with at least one or possibly more running. After 3.5 hours, I called the police, case number 2020-12574, at 9 p.m. to confirm and get the noise complaint on record, as we revised to 2 years ago by the town of Berlin Planning and Zoning Department. They were parked and running on the legally clear buffer by Commerce Street, and was confirmed by the police. They're still running at 11:30 p.m. and continue running into the morning. You have this package, I have pictures too. Please see the pictures I've done in my comments for the August 4th incident. These are just a few recent examples of ways I'm able to play 50-second video during my speech to demonstrate the relation of August 4th. Just to show, I'm going to show that these were the trailers that were parked on that clear buffer lot that they're not supposed to be using. It's clear right by the road, that's the clear buffer. I couldn't tell if there was anyone walking over and trespassing. I couldn't tell if there's 2 or 3 trailers there, how many. There's at least 2 for one units running. And I have the second picture too, but it's not as clear as the first one. This proposed verbiage will potentially allow them to make more noise 24/7, 365 as they access those additionally stored noise-making items, engines, motors, and refrigeration units that run for long periods of time. Allowing more storage will result in them moving more stuff around and cause more noise. Noise has already negatively and tremendously affected us over the past 4 years and has not been resolved. I noticed that since the July 16th PNC meeting, 4 to 5 day storage limit was removed from the proposed verbiage. I'm assuming that would be difficult for the town of Berlin Planning and Zoning Department to keep track of what is being stored in the timeline. I feel this should be kept in place to make the businesses accountable for storage time limits. Otherwise, a storageable item can be kept there indefinitely. Items being added to existing storage can build up to a mess. Also removed from the proposed verbiage was verbiage pertaining to trucks and trailers and not contain goods. This isn't good since a fire refrigeration would potentially be allowed. There'd be more noise since a trailer can hold goods. Also removed from the proposed verbiage was opaque screening. Opaque screening would block our view of climate every day of the year. Chairperson Bealy had previously stated at the March 5th, 2020 meeting that it's important to not allow outside storage to become a blight issue, and I agree. This can give them carte blanche to store even more, even with the newly added verbiage shall only be permitted pursuant to such conditions as the commission may impose. Thereby increasing the view of blight from my residential property along with external obsolescence. Again, there's no buffer except for 2 lines of trees, which these are leaves, so I can see the property from my backyard all year round. The setback from the road is mentioned in the Berlin zoning regulations. I don't know the required dimensions of a setback, but the western portion of the land is the buffer that was later removed for their 2009 conditional experience. Maybe include this part of the setback. So my questions with these proposed amendments are, will this allow them to store more trailers with attached engines, motors, and refrigeration units that can run and cause more noise 24/7, 365? What is considered machinery? What is it? Does it include parts that make noise that can travel to our houses and penetrate our house walls 24/7, 365? Is there going to be noise blockage language added to these proposed amendments to protect residential neighbors from sound and potential additional storage 24/7, 365? Screening was briefly mentioned by Maureen Juicy at the July 16, 2020 PNC meeting. As it stands, we have 2 rows of trees left in our climate. We have been requesting for years to have a buffer back. The wall of evergreen trees is soft. So what will the screening potentially be? Will it be high enough to block the view from the second floor of my house? The trees previously. What are the specifics on the proposed amendments? Are there going to be specific size and/or weight limit regulations for trailers, trucks, and other storage items that can be stored in the industrial area? Section 7G3 of Berlin zoning regulations only permits storage on the sides and rear of the building, and not extend into the setback from the street line or required side yards adjacent to any non-industrial zone. But it doesn't list a specific amount of stored items. At the time of the submission of these comments to Maureen Juicy on August 5th, 2020, I did not hear back from her on the required dimensions of the setback for PI. Will the setback include the already illegally cleared buffer from engineering on the western portion of their site? Are there going to be specific quantities detailed in the verbiage? We're going to monitor the storage of these industrial areas to see if the storage is meeting regulations for the conditions of the commission codes. When the permission to store is seek from the PNC, how will the public know, since it will be on it's not going to be an agenda item versus public hearing? Will the ZBA be involved in this process? So in summary, it's easy for some people to want, recommend, and support these proposed amendments to make the job easier and help their business for whatever reasons. But please keep in mind that these proposed amendments can affect the residential neighbors who live in the general industrial zones. The July 16, 2020 PNC meeting was proposed that no tractor trailer or truck loaded with merchandise, supplies, and raw materials shall be parked in a lot for a period exceeding 5 consecutive days in 1 calendar month. That was removed after that meeting. Now that potentially allows them to store indefinitely. It also allows them to store trailers with goods inside that resulting in running refrigeration units. That doesn't benefit residential neighbors due to potential risks. I'm storing for indefinite amounts of time can cause rodent infestations, a mess inside the trucks or trailers. Please reverse that to now allow storage inside trailers and trucks, even though the stored goods may not be seen. These proposed amendments, my concern that public hearing safeguards currently in place will be bypassed as a storage request are made to the PNC without public input. These proposed amendments, my concerns are that for outdoor views will increase by allowing an opportunity to store more on the property and probably will do so without permission from the commission first. We have already experienced external obsolescence for our views of trailers and trucks, and certainly don't want blight. Sitting metal storage items can rust and dilapidate. These proposed amendments, my concerns are that storage can turn out of control without restrictions, undefined quantities of items stored, and without monitoring, especially for climate engineering, trying to get site method approved. They were seeking more use and storage on their site. Section 7G3 zoning regulations like storage outside of the building and access to setback from the street line or to require side yards adjacent to any non-industrial zone. With these proposed amendments, my concerns are potentially allowing them to make more noise 24/7, 365 as they access those additional stored noise making items, engines, motors, and refrigeration units that run for long periods of time, allowing more future storage will result in moving more stuff around and cause noise. This noise has already affected us tremendously over the past 4 years, and it's not stopping, it's not being resolved. Once the noise from motor starts, we don't know how long it will last for, and it can be as long as it can be a few minutes or several hours. For me personally, the noise issues are the biggest issues. That's how effective I am with noise. Another concern is the conflicts pertaining to businesses with use conditions and restrictions currently set in place. My main concern was with climate engineering. These proposals can potentially help companies in case against the town of Berlin to allow them to do what they were legally doing in the first place. It can also potentially negate the cease and desist orders and legal action that the town of Berlin has worked hard for to uphold the required legal storage uses. A business like climate engineering was given an inch with the 2009 variance from miles since then to follow the rules for their legal use and storage. Serve cease and desist orders and legal action, which happened just as recently as a few weeks ago. I highly doubt they'll seek permission for simply the verbiage permitted pursuant to such conditions as the commission may impose. It seems like these proposed amendments can potentially reward them by doing what they want and what are they were doing versus what they are currently required to do and still have adhered to. Why reward these proposed amendments? I understand it's difficult for the town of Berlin planning and zoning department and try to Coca to fight legal cases, but they have a strong case against climate. Climate should be grandfathered with their current use and storage restrictions, along with requirement to replace the required buffer in addition to directing opaque screen. They should be held accountable and cure their past violations, not be acquitted due to how these proposed amendments can help them. We, the residential neighbors of climate, have paid for their misdeeds. Please understand how these proposed amendments can affect the residential neighbors since we live next to PI zone/businesses. We have to see and hear directly 24/7, 365. It's been difficult for us. We want quiet enjoyment of our properties. I grew up in Berlin and was excited to build my house in East Berlin 18 years ago. I love the town, and my house was always intended to be my forever home. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to me and let me speak about how these proposed amendments potentially affect the residential neighbors, especially their ongoing and unresolved storage issues. Ongoing and unresolved storage and use problems with the industrial neighbor. Thank you for serving on the commission. Thank you for listening to me. Sincerely, Diane.
Thank you. I know it was very difficult for you. It's just been a tough road.
It's personal. It's very
Well,
personal.
yeah, it gets to a point where it's manageable. So, Maureen. I believe that Attorney Capola had done the work with Maureen regarding the regulation to give us a little bit more teeth as opposed to latitude for an applicant. I honestly believe that that is the intention of her text proposal. I can understand where you can see that in a different light, and I hope I'm reading this correctly, is that it gives us better grasp on helping as we go forward. As to your specific location with cease and desist orders going and things continuing to roll out there, I'm not sure where the town is with this parcel of property. But that's almost. It's almost like a separate issue. It's, you really got to stay with the text amendments and keep our eye on the prize, so to speak. So I appreciate you coming here and sharing with us what this has done to you. But I hope that you understand that the position of the text amendment is not to give industry a carte blanche, but more or less give the commission a greater ability to control what could be impacting neighborhoods and to keep the business in line to be a good neighbor.
He must understand too, most businesses have been compliant over the years.
Yes.
But this one in particular, they
Yeah.
haven't been. So for them to come and seek, permission from the PDC, I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
We do stuff all the time. And unless I get a picture or send a video in, nobody knows.
Well, again, like I said, this is two separate things that are happening. We understand the turmoil you have, but we're trying to get a handle just on the overall text. And that's what we're here to discuss tonight. The real issue is something that's more than ongoing. Okay, thank you, thank you. Yes, sir.
May I also speak to one word?
Of course you can, sir. I just ask that you make yourself.
Is it okay if I sit?
Sure. Of course, you can sit. This way we have.
I can't stand too long.
That's all right, that's all right. I think the recording will pick you up.
Sure.
Yeah. And
So I have, first, my name for the record is Darrell Johnson. I live at 331 Berlin Street in East Berlin, which is right on the corner of Berlin Street and Commerce Street. So every single truck that goes down Commerce Street passes my house. So I actually came to give you just some questions because I'm unclear on what's presented. So I'm hoping you can give me some clarification. But after listening to what was said, I would like to just give you a little bit of clarification too. So the Connecticut regulations about idling 3 minutes are very specific in the sense that once the vehicle is parked, it has to be shut off within 3 minutes. However, if you read the whole regulation, the regulation says if the vehicle is being repaired, there is no time limit on how long it can idle. So we are not really protected by that regulation with the use of a repair shop. And I don't just mean refrigerated trailers, it could be a truck or a car or any type of repair shop. So just a quick, so I don't know how many of you understand how refrigeration works. Refrigeration does not put cold into things. It draws heat and moisture out. That's how it works. In the world we've come to live in today, we have trying to eliminate many hazardous products. And I want a nice environment for my children and my grandchildren too. But as such, we've gone away to many water-based products. As we've gone to water-based products, these refrigeration units are not, they're not just refrigeration units. When you have a refrigerator in your house, it's your refrigerator. You don't change it in the summertime to throw heat. Well, these units actually can control temperature, not just refrigeration. So they run all the time. So in the wintertime, when you're thinking, well, how much refrigeration would you need? They actually run a lot because there's many water-based products that they're trying to keep from freezing. It's one of the number one things that they use these trailers for in the wintertime. So that's just a little, so you understand how the trailers work. I'm trying to understand in the regulations, with what's being proposed, it says it would need specific approval from the commission to give, like, it's on an individual case basis, if I'm understanding it right, some of the language that's in there.
Well, I can have the attorney address that specifically.
So the idea is, again, in that portion of
I'm sorry,
I know,
thank you.
and it's but in section 7G3, so the last provision that has the general requirements for the industrial zones, it does require site plan approval. So yes, essentially yes.
So this is just my question, because I'm not sure I understand it. So I'm just going to use this example. Let's say that I have a large parcel of land that I want to develop. And that large parcel of land is in R43 zone. And let's say the regulations say that, lots are 1 acre with so many feet of frontage, rear acre is so much. And I come and I put something before the commission. Now, if I'm not asking for anything specific outside of the regulations, my understanding is that can be done at any meeting and there has to be no public hearing on it. That's correct.
talking about a site plan without a public hearing and so, for permitted use under the regs. So you're talking about them acting in an administrative capacity on a site plan. So if it's compliant, the law is that if it's compliant with their regs, then yes, then the applicant will of course argue that they're entitled to the approval because it wasn't in use and it meets the requirements of the regs. So yes.
So my question is, once this becomes part of the regulations, zoning regulations in these different zones, if somebody wants to do this, it falls within the zoning regulations of that zone. Does that mean that there would be no public hearing about it? In other words, it kind of eliminates the public's chance to speak.
So they have in their regs, and it's different from town to town, but they do have in their regs that they can hold a public hearing on the site.
What, a little bit?
It is in the Berlin zoning regulations, they can't hold a public hearing on the site.
So, because my only concern is this, I'm not anti-business either, and there may be places where what's being proposed is very appropriate and it keeps businesses in town and it's a good thing. Be places where it's inappropriate, it just doesn't fit. I mean, we live in a community that's roughly 250 years old from the time of incorporation. We don't live in a planned community that was built in the 60s and 70s. My point is most of our industrial zones are kind of intertwined within residential zones. So that concerns me that once this becomes part of the regulations, that it can be part of a presentation that never has to have a public hearing. And I'm not sure I understand it right, so I'm not saying that's the case. I'm asking, is that the case?
No, the public hearing is normally, is embraced by the commission and usually the town planner. In the sense that, when you have somebody who's proposing something that may be questionable, allowing within that zone, and you have a development that's coming in, it behooves the commission to review that. So that we can make sure, because we have professional staff. The idea of the commission is so that you have these extra citizens who are involved in the process that all have specific ideas and ways to view site plans. And it's through that combination of variety on the commission that gives the commission the ability to give feedback to staff. So in other words, it's more eyes on the project.
Right, I understand it, and my only comment was in the past, hearings were held and we were told it's within the regulations and it's not, it's a meeting, it's not a hearing, and the public isn't allowed to comment. And it caused things to kind of snowball to the point where we are today with certain neighbors. And it's interesting in the fact that we have, I've lived in that house, it'll be 35 years at the end of this year. And I've never once complained to anyone, any town official before Climate came in. And that's through the whole extension of Commerce Street. That is through the whole expansion of Clark Street. I don't know how many of the commissioners are aware, but Firestone Newcastle is in the last building on the left-hand side when you go down. It creates an unbelievable amount of truck traffic. They're professional, they're courteous. And, you know, when I bought my house, it's not like, I didn't know I was buying a house that backed up to a commercial zone. You know, I mean, I've heard people complain, I bought a house in Berlin and I smell manure. There was a farm behind you. Maybe you didn't see it when you bought the house. But what I'm saying is, you know, we're not anti-business and we've never had a problem, but it concerns me that the public could be eliminated from the process. But what you're saying is that's not really the case, John.
No.
Okay.
No. Under the regs that were proposed, we'll give the commission a little more leeway.
I'm sorry, Mrs.
We'll give the commission a little bit more leeway. And what? discretion under the property, okay, to make sure they're not, screwing around with the residential properties next door because we're doing one screening or whatever. But we also, in our regulations, can bring it to a public hearing. So if we feel that we can't cover it under the new regulations and our leeway that's in the regulations now, then it would be brought to a public hearing. And everyone, this commission and the whole is going to review it and hear everyone at that time. But with the regulations the way it's drawn now, it gives us a little bit more leeway to do what we gotta do to protect the neighboring properties and stuff like that. It just gives a little bit more discretion.
Right, so I would then say that I would recommend to the commission that they seriously consider Commissioner Dorsey's questions about specifically naming refrigerated carriers because our refrigerated use of trailers. Problem is that, let's say I want to be a Chevrolet dealer, right? And I go, hey, you know what? I only want to sell Corvettes and make $8,000 or $10,000, and I don't want to service anything. Well, to be a Chevrolet dealer, you're not allowed to do that. Climate is a licensed agent for Carrier Mobile, Carrier Trailer. To be a licensed agent for Carrier, you have to agree to provide 24-hour service. The other problem that comes in is when you are trying to cool stuff, the toughest thing in the world to cool is air. Don't you remember our grandmothers were kind of frugal? They'd say, fill empty milk jugs up with water and put them in the refrigerator if you're not going to have anything in there, it'll run less. So that's why when they're working on something, the only way they can know if it's working is to watch the temperature drop. Well, if it's an empty trailer, it runs for hours and hours and hours in the middle of the night. And again, I'm not anti-business. I think there's parts that I see in there that I think are good. I would like the commission to have more leeway, but I would also like some protection for people in the town too. And I think that's a fair balance. I'm sure most of you want to strike that balance too. So thank you for your time, and I thank all of you for your service. I see your faces, I see the clock. I will tell you, I've spent many late nights in this very room and during teacher negotiations, many late weekends in this room. So thank you for your service to the town. I know it is a sacrifice. I know it's a lot of time, and it's time away from your family. And it's somewhat thankless, and sometimes you get screamed at. So I'm probably someone who's screamed at you before. Thank you very much.
No, Maureen, I'm sorry, Mr. Woolman.
I think we're kind of getting a little confused.
Yes.
We're mixing what I consider a zoning enforcement scenario with the text amendment we're trying to do to protect people in the future.
Well, exactly.
And while I understand there are ways that we should address it, maybe this is something, and I don't know where it is legally, I'm coming into this thinking lately what's going on with it, but keep on our text amendment for a second, listening to what folks said. Our new zoning enforcement officer maybe spend a little more time over there eyeing what's going on so that we can help our neighbors and making enforce what we've already approved here to be done correctly so that our neighbors don't suffer like this. So now that we have this new zoning enforcement officer, we may have him try by that a little more often than usual to help protect our neighbors and make sure that they're following what we've already passed. Yes.
Right, we can create a rule in the world. It's like comics, they can create, but if there's nobody there, there's no cop there, whether it be zoning enforcement or whatever. We can create all the rules in the world, and if nobody's enforcing it, guess what? You might as well not even bother making a rule.
Maureen, I know that you want to say something, then I'll go over to.
Please.
Procedurally, I just wanted to clarify something with regard to public hearings that we do, and I pulled up one where it's on the same page. We have site plan uses, and then we have special permit uses, and this is, hopefully I'm saying it simply enough. And special permits do require public hearings, and other permitted uses in the zone don't require a public hearing if the threshold of the regulations are met all the way along. the process. If they meet the criteria for that use, as listed as a site plan use, a public hearing can be held. Our regulations have at the discretion of the commission that the commission can call a public hearing. However, a public hearing is not required for site plan uses. Special permit uses are public hearing items. And so it's and they're deliberately listed.
And that's
as separate
specifically what I
uses.
was asking.
And
Thank you.
so I kind of wanted to circle back to clarify that.
Thank you, Maureen.
I'll leave the other.
No, thank you. Yes, actually, it actually tails into some degree. When I talk to people, I normally tell people that Berlin as a community and its business, we're good at building, fixing, installing things. Really, really good at it. Those are the folks that I look at with this type of changes. For instance, electrical contractor currently in another town interested in coming to Berlin to build a building. He basically does electron testing work, 98% of what he does. 2% of it is he has to dig underground. So a loader that he's got to dig in. He uses 3 times a year. It's behind his building, has appropriate screening. That's really where, in my mind, this fits. That actually is a special permit use that does need a public hearing, and I think that's vitally important too. If it's done properly, I think it works. My concern is the fact that as we go forward, very few businesses do just one thing. And I don't want it to affect people, especially not the way it's affected the folks on commerce. But what I'm thinking about is if we can do this, we can offer that opportunity, again, what I'm calling the clean contractors, which I think we added, which is your HVAC, plumbing, et cetera. I don't want big piles of tar. I don't want big piles of landscaping stuff. It's the folks where 98% of it's inside the building, which this commission has done an amazing way. And I think that definitely makes sense to look at it this way. So I do want to thank you, but I do want to say thank you to Steel Wrist Man being here. You guys approved Steel Wrist a couple of years ago, and he's wearing the logo. So it's just a good thing for Berlin business. But thank you again, and thank you all for being here tonight. I know this is a late night, and I won't be done with it, but just want to let you know that's kind of where myself and the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Also on the text. So it's in the public hearing.
So we need to.
Yes.
We need to ask if else.
Okay. All right, terrific. Anyone else out there still with us who would like to comment on this application?
I'm working on in case somebody decides to want to speak, so.
Anyone?
Oh, he keeps immediately remuting himself.
Oh, yeah, all right. Well, I guess that's it.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Luis Rivera, and I live on 172 Redwood Lane next to Diana Basins. So I submitted a letter 2 weeks ago and pretty much summarized, all the developments for the last 4.5 years, and starting off with, actually I had Chris Edge over the house visiting me when this whole issue started. And a lot of it, when I look back, and one thing that still bothers me is the fact that when Edro extended their driveway, that was the same year that Climate decided to remove their buffer. And so one thing that's always been bothering me is, one of the conditions of the variance that they had that was given to them back in 2009 was the fact that there was a buffer. And so I still to this day don't understand how and why they were allowed to remove that buffer. So that's still a question that, again, I'm still trying to figure out why. But the bottom line is that you just need to be careful with the language. I think you need to, like my friend Daryl said, again, I'm not against business, but I think we need to walk a fine line. We need to be specific as to what we say and what we allow, because I think from the time that Climate's been here, they've kind of, crossed the line quite a few times. And so when it comes to them, with this amendment, I just want to make sure that they don't take advantage of it with the storage, because again, we've had the history here all the police reports, the tickets, everything that has been filed against climate, because again, they go beyond what they do, at least what we expected them to do, and they continue. So the storage, if it starts again going into the whole thing what Daryl said with more refrigeration units running outside, and if it actually truly becomes a third shift operation, which is 10 p.m. through 6 a.m. It's like I said in my letter, our bedroom window is only 600 feet away from Commerce Street, and I can hear a truck idling at night from my bedroom window. I can hear a truck idling across the street in the Climate Engineering parking lot. That's how visible, that's how clear the noise is that I hear. So you can imagine when the refrigeration units are running, it's at least 3 or 4 times louder than a truck that's idling. So I just want to kind of give you guys that perspective regarding the noise level. And then aesthetically, I think it just looks ugly because then you have all the tractor trailers that are just parked in their parking lot, and so it doesn't make Commerce Street look that pretty. But again, that's neither here or there. But anyway, that's my comment. That's my only comment I have. I think Diana and Daryl has said enough, and I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
Clarify that the letter is in your packet.
Yes, I see it.
He did the punch. It was in my hand to
Yeah.
point out to you. So it was posted. It was all there.
Can I just make one other quick comment? I want you to understand, we're not trying to tell you guys how to run the commission or how to run the town. We're just asking for one provision specifically about refrigerated trailers to be added, to be excluded from these new regulations. And I don't see how, if this isn't about commerce, why asking for that one thing is unreasonable, because I don't know any landscapers or any other businesses that use the refrigerated trailers that way, other than maybe a food service company. Thank you very much.
So noted.
So, well, I just a brief comment, and last time that we met, as a commission, when we were discussing the language of this text amendment, the changes that were proposed, were intended to the regulations more enforceable. And so some of the adjustments were by design with the enforceability in mind. So like the removal of the trucks, we had, the discussion had to do with enforceability of the regulation. And so by having the flexibility, by the commission having the flexibility to consider applications individually, when we have circumstances like the refrigeration units, as long as that flexibility is there by the simplicity of the language, I think in some ways we're better off. Sometimes you try to get wrapped up in having specific verbiage to account for every little circumstance, and you get yourself into trouble by overlooking something or not considering the way that somebody can deliberately manipulate it to really. It says this, so I'm going to do it this way. I'm, circumvent the requirement. So the intention of the amendment is to make everything more enforceable and give the commission the flexibility to maybe ratchet down in circumstances where we need to.
Anyone else have an issue?
Well, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm certainly, I know, zoning enforcement is, the people in town are doing the best they. Are there other avenues? Can police do something? Can a suit be brought by the neighborhood against this corporation because they're violating our rules? Because it's not getting fixed. The rules are already there that they can't do this. And they're still doing it and nobody's doing anything about it. So this gives us more leeway to create better rules, but if they aren't getting enforced, then we can have all the rules in the world. And am I making sense? I mean, I don't understand the process that well.
I don't wanna, single speak.
Right, I understand.
One of the things I will say is I don't see, resolution coming through what you're doing tonight. That's not,
Right.
it really is not. There's a lot of past with resolution.
And I agree with that, but the problem I'm seeing is I think the neighborhood thinks that we're actually giving them more leeway to violate the law more. And that's not what we're doing, but I think it's seen that way.
I wouldn't say seen that way, but it could be as.
Yeah, and that's not.
That gives them more. I understand that issues.
Well, and that isn't the case, but if they have that concern.
I think what you're also hearing is after 5 years and we're still living with the same problem, that's.
All right. Again, I think what it is that we have to separate ourselves, and that's not to minimize what's going on in the neighborhood. We really just have to look at this document that's here and try and address it as a commission. Is this proposal before us something that we want to adopt? Will it give us the tools that we need looking forward down the road? Now, what's going to happen, that whole other issue, whole nother ball of wax, but I really just want to stay focused on what's being proposed here tonight. So I'll ask the commission, do we see something in these text amendments that we,
Would ask one question at a time.
Okay, go.
After this discussion. I know the DOT regs from an engine, environmentals. I've been in that business for 43 years. I've got arrested for it. Down in Washington, DC. But running vehicles more than
that's a whole
3
other
minutes.
story.
But with that said, can we put a time span on running of vehicles and AC units from 9 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning? Can we put a restriction on
I
time?
think that falls under the simple language of conditions as the commission manual.
Well, I understand that.
That allows us to.
And we probably could do that under those restriction things that we have now. But if we could put it, is there a way we could put it in the text?
You're talking about, I think what you're asking me is to resolve their problem. And I don't know that this.
Resolve everyone's problem.
No, it doesn't, because what if if we really want to do this all night, what if there's a spot out in the middle of nowhere and we can use our discretion that it won't affect anyone, but they're not, that's not fair to that person. This text amendment isn't geared towards this property. It's geared towards all the property, so we can't address that today. We're wasting time.
And we have to remember too that the type of vehicles that you're concerned with is that's covered under the special permit uses. You all know that special permit is more under the magnifying glass than anything else. So I will say, Mr. Holman said it with clarity, is that that's something that we'll have to that we address on a case by
I know it
case.
gives the commission
Well,
the power
and
to
we
address
can't,
it.
but we can't commingle the two. I mean, we really just have to look and see. Now, we're still in the public hearing, so. I mean, if the commission's not comfortable with it, I mean, if we think it needs to be tweaked more, then by all means, you know, we can close this out and revisit it.
Make a
Or we can
motion
continue.
to close out the public.
Okay, so we have a motion to
Second.
close the public hearing. We have a second by Mr.
Should we wait for this to be out here first?
We have enough, So, further discussion. All those in favor of closing public hearing? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so moved. All right. All right, so let's go back to the other business we have on hand. We'll circle back, okay? All right, so we're gonna look at items under old business, the text amendment for Metro Realty Group to amend the Berlin zoning regulations. Also, we're gonna be looking, so we're gonna take this point by point, right? So let's talk about the text amendments first for Metro Realty Ltd. To amend Berlin zoning regulations, section 11, Bravo workforce housing. Okay.
And the recommendation to approve with the staff comments.
Okay, so Mr. Zigma has the motion to approve with staff comments, second by Mr. Woolman. Further discussion on this, and all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? So moved. Item B, zone change request of 833 Deming Road LLC and the Berlin Remnant Land Parcels LLC to change the zone from residential 43 and office technical. And
The motion to approve with staff comments.
okay, Mr. Zigma has the motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Woolman. Further discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. Item C, a site plan application, because they would do a special applicable. Site plan applications of 833 Deming Road LLC and Berlin Remnants Lands Parcels LLC to construct 11 residential apartment buildings, total 88 units at block 10, 11-1, 11-2, block 122 at 0, 823, and 833 Deming Road. And,
Motion to approve with staff comments.
okay, Mr. Zigma.
Second.
Motion. Mr. Woolman, second.
Keep it
Further
going.
discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, so moved. All right, so now we are back to the proposed amendments. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And have a good evening.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Make sure you vote like you did the other one.
Yes, I know. Do a good job over there. Make us proud. Okay. Proposed amendments to Berlin zoning regulations regarding the outdoor storage in industrial zones. Again, we're just looking at the text, proposed text. I know that we've bantered this about a lot. I know there's some concerns, and I know that there's specific issues on hand. But looking over the overall text amendment, I think that this gives us a little bit more teeth in the long run. I'm not sure how the rest of the commission feels about it.
I would agree. I don't think we can look at this in any particular case, but as an overall regulation, and I do agree that I think this gives us more control rather than less.
All right. Anyone else have something to say?
I think it gives a lot.
No?
That was the purpose of our
So, am
long
I
discussion.
sensing a motion to make?
I'll make a motion to approve
All right,
with staff comments.
okay, motion by Mr. Zigma with staff comments, and we have a second.
Second.
Mr. Woolman, further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? So moved. All right, okay, so now we go down to the review of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, June 18th and July 16th. As everyone had a chance to review the minutes? And if so, you have a motion to make a motion. June 18th. June 18th, Mr. Sigma. Do we have a second? Okay. Good second, Mr. Biella, second. Further discussion on the minutes, then all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, those abstaining? I abstain. Okay, for the record, Ms. Dorsey abstains. July 16th, how do we feel about that, Mr. Holman? Okay.
I'm gonna abstain too, but there is one commission, Brian.
Okay.
I'll move to approve July 16th.
Okay, we have, yeah. Then the second, all right, so Mr. Holman, Mr. Zigmont had the second. So further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed and abstaining are Mr. Biella and Mr. Rogan. Well, Brian Rogan.
Steve's are taking over.
Okay, I know. All right, go on to the bond release. We had a question, how's the bond release for Kensington Congregational Church? Are we good or?
Kensington Congregational Church has done all the work and surpassed the year of the work having been completed, and staff feels that they met their obligation with regard to the plans, and we recommend the bond release.
Make a motion to release the bond at Kensington Congregational Church, 312 Crystal Ave.
Thank you, Mr. Woolman. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Rogan. For the discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. All right, request for the Silver Island Homes bond reduction. I think we have a question.
What's that? My notes. Okay, so if I may, as far as the bond reduction goes there, they have a few items remaining on their bond. The bond, then to clarify the background a little, is that the bank has sent us a letter saying that they weren't renewing the bond. At the last correspondence, Mr. De Matero was pursuing resecuring a bond or coming up with a new bond amount. And, with different funds, what have you, while the developer who has gotten the approval, simultaneously, as you recall, the project was approved again last year because it had expired, so it was approved in 2019 for the project to be finished. That developer is pursuing completing the sidewalks and some of the repair work that needs to be done. In the meantime, the bond we have covers $45,000 for bonding with regard to the conservation area. That was per the settlement agreement from way back in 2004. When the project was initially approved and carries forward, it's not been released or not changed at this point as far as that requirement. $14,000 for road pavement, curbing, and base. We have inspected the site, and engineering agrees and sent an email today to me commenting that they are okay with that amount to be released. The road has been in private driveway road that goes through the project, and that work has been completed for over a year as well and is okay to be released. We don't feel that the sidewalks should be released at this time until they've done the work, and then at which point it may be recommended to reduce it at that point, because we need to maintain some of it for after it's completed. And the sedimentation barriers and trees, there's work yet to do, so we don't think that should be released So we believe that the bond can be reduced by $14,000 because the paving is done. And then we will, as a staff, pursue with the applicant to get the funds secured. But have them secure the lesser amount.
And somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to reduce the bond by $14,000.
Okay, all right, so we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Moore. I don't all those, any other questions, all those in favor? Aye. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Can I just
Yes.
suggest something in conjunction with this?
We'll humor you.
There's a letter in here from Christopher Edge in reference to Sal and Carol Cal along Mid-State Turnpike. And it didn't get on the agenda. So I was hoping that we could talk about it a little bit. They're looking, is that legally okay? That, like in the commissioner of business or something that?
We're having a discussion item with
Discussion
regard
item.
to,
The use
and.
on the Berlin Turnpike.
And Mid-State, is it not over by that James Village or
Yes,
whatever?
correct.
That
So you can basically have what you see on the agenda.
I can give you some background, Chris Edge. So,
Well, wait, we gotta make sure we can talk.
oh, yes, sorry.
Well, we can always adjourn and then talk about
It's a discussion.
No,
No, because then it's illegal.
Being recorded, can we kind of be one way?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The audience is still there.
These motions at the beginning of the agenda, but you're gonna move to amend your agenda, add this item to discuss. So please just make that motion.
Make a motion to add this to an agenda item, Mid-State Restaurant on the Berlin Turnpike.
So that we can discuss it with staff. Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Woolman, we have a second by Mr. Rogan. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of adding the item? Aye. Right, those opposed, and you all speak time.
Why would
Mr.
I know,
Woolman.
yeah, I got a lot of very eyes, what a visual, and I saw-
That's why I want you to-
Yes, so Chris Edge again, it's been enough times tonight. So, Sal and Carol Keller, they started the Mid-State Air Compressor basically in the garage. They grew to about 3,000 square feet on Deming. 4 years ago, plus or minus, this commission approved them to buy the old car dealership. Their business has gone from a small to they built the entire building 12,000 square feet. During pre-COVID and now through COVID, they realized there's a business opportunity they'd like to take advantage of. It is essentially long-term rentals of equipment. For instance, you'll see on the highway, the big old things with the light fixture.
Yep.
They're basically doing, as well as their air compressor. So what they'd like to do is, they would like to use the back of the property where Genesis building was. Remember, they had the sheds, and it's been a bit of a.
Landscapes.
Yes, so what they're looking to do essentially is to do a screened-in inside area, outside area, I should say, where a customer can come up and look at it. Essentially, again, it's gonna be locked up, it's basically gonna be an outside display for them on her property. So it's not gonna be part of their property, and essentially looking for this commission's opinion on whether or not we see this fitting under the current approval for Genesis Village, which again was the outside sales of sheds, PlayStation, etc. for them, and whether or not we believe we can help this business to grow short term with this. I mean, again, long term, we hope we could buy it and make it part of this operation, but right now, because of the timing, is an opportunity to lease this. I've been working with Ms. Janice for my 5 years. The property itself, if anybody does not know the history, is it has a Worthington Ridge address. The property goes all the way to the turnpike. The zone line splits the property. It is one property. The commercial side is actually like an accessory or secondary use. The residential, please tell me if I'm mistaken, right? The residential is a primary use.
Yeah.
So this property is very challenging. For instance, somebody came and said, hey, I want to do this. The problem is, you can't use the bathroom in the house. You need to have a bathroom.
Yeah.
This commission, and I agree wholeheartedly, does not want to see porta potties in the Berlin Turnpike. That's the only way to do it. This is a way for both the property owner to get some income, but more importantly, help Sal and Carol to continue the business. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but we've been closely with them. They're ready to make this happen. So it's more about what do you guys think? What's the best avenue to go?
I think I'd be very interested to see.
Yeah, I think it would
I'd-
be
part of the
I'd
property
be
that
very interested.
the display lot, the parking lot.
Yes, the Genesis Village piece where it's
Wait a
been,
minute, what about the hot dog guy? He's not.
no, I believe the hot dog, no, I believe the hot dog guy is on the,
It's on,
he's on their property. Yeah, he's on sale
Okay,
property.
all right, good to go.
No, we don't wanna mess with the hot dog guy.
Fireman Frank's gonna stay.
You got a used car dealership across the street, the firehouse, the sheds.
But the way I look at this is, if it goes according to plan, when you watch Mistake Road, it's gonna solve an issue for us also. We're gonna put a line right down the middle, and we're gonna buy it from her, and then we don't have this Janice the trucks, cars, boats, whatever shows up there, and then they sell it. Also, and quite honestly, a good partner.
Yeah.
in the town within
Oh,
that
I
state.
love
I don't have a problem with it, as long as they screen it towards the residential.
We got, no, and that's the
Well,
piece
that's
that.
why
we would have-
we wanna have them come to us.
Yeah, I mean, and I think maybe what it is, if this commission would give the approval for Maureen to work with him to come in with the screening.
Yep.
Because, I mean, the good thing is too, they're Berlin folks. He was one of the most pleasant people to work for the fact that he had opportunities to go elsewhere, we were astounded. And I kept literally begging him to stay until this building came available. So he's not going anywhere, he wants to keep growing. I just want to see if we can help him in a way that he doesn't have to wait until December to make it happen.
Is it a motion or just a blessing?
At this point, I would say probably would be to give our planner your guidance on how she can handle it. If so, administratively, that would be tremendous.
So I believe that we'll need outdoor display approval from the commission under those regulations. I believe we're still tweaking that. It is a use that's on an adjacent parcel.
Yeah.
It does have some zoning challenges to figure out that as to allowing that use on the adjacent property. But the existing approval for Janice's property is really what starts with problematic issue, because it is a residential property. But the regulations do allow commercial uses, or rather uses from the other zone on a property that's in both zones.
Yep.
So it's kind of, you take one regulation and you find another one that causes you a ripple and you go back and forth. You don't want to lead him down the wrong path if it doesn't make any sense at all to the commission, but we'll pursue how the path, if there's a path there, we'll continue to pursue that if it makes sense. The outdoor is often an issue, and the approval for Janice's property had some very strict constraints with regard to what could and couldn't be. When she had her sheds, she wasn't allowed to, I think, have lawn furniture or something else. You know, there were items she couldn't have either, and it's come up again and again, and it has been a matter of contention.
I think the commission is gonna be, I get the sense the commission is very interested in seeing this, work through. So.
I need to make a motion to allow staff to work with the state compressors to
Sure, let's have a
optimize the outdoor show space.
That lot goes right to where the bridge.
Yeah, the house is there.
I'm sorry, I was trying to zoom in
And
on that.
that's a R7 or R15 zone.
It's R15 zone.
15, what, you got 15,000 square foot?
She has well more than.
Just under a half acre.
It's just under half acre.
Yeah, so she's about 20,000 square feet plus or minus.
So the 5,000 feet towards the highway could be split off that and leave 15,000 with the house. Let the capital.
Yeah, but right now they're just.
It's this map right here, so this is her parcel.
Yeah, can you drop the zoning on there and I could just kind of, perfect. Yeah, so this is her triangle here with the house and then the village. So here's the split. This is the BT1, that's the home. So essentially it cuts her property almost directly in half.
This is her property right here that I'm outlining.
All you gotta do is leave 15,000 with the house and the rest of it.
We can always do a zone extension of the BT too.
Yeah, but right now.
Well, it's on
she's
her
just
property.
releasing
The BT one is her property has the BT one zone right here.
I'm saying when if she
No,
decides.
it's down the
to
road and
property.
purchase it, you can turn it off.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Cut it off, and give her a little bit
Okay,
of,
that's
help
okay.
out, give her a little bit of.
You give her a couple bucks, you basically do a sightline adjustment.
That's it.
Sightline adjustment, so what's a
Zoning line,
Say something.
Now,
zoning line.
on a separate issue, we could somehow clean up that, antique store on the other side of that.
Holy
whole-
smokes.
Holy,
That's
believe
That's
that.
getting pretty clever, isn't
Well,
it?
the-
That's a very
It's a
deliberate,
junkyard.
restraints, I think, when you approve it.
Well, here's what happened, the kid.
Hey, can we finish what we started?
All right, anyway,
I made a
so,
motion.
all right, Mr. Woman had a
Oh, no.
motion. No, that's second. Where's the second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Woman. Then further discussion on that, or all those in favor?
Aye.
Hey, anyone opposed? No, go ahead.
Antiques Place, the gentleman who came here for the approvals,
Yes,
sold it to somebody else. I don't know the somebody else, but they're the ones that have made it look like it has.
it is horrible. I mean, you can't tell me that stuff left out in the rain is antique. It's, I think we need to pull
You
that
guys
from
keep
it
going
down.
on.
Motion to adjourn?
Huh?
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, so,
Second.
who has the motion?
No, 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 no.
On the corner of Chestnut. and Main
Mr.
Street.
Roman had the motion.
I got the second.
Second,
I already
first
got
by
the
Ms.
second.
Brown. It's 10:15 in the evening. Mark.
One day.
No promises, but somebody call me about reopening permits.
Next.
Friends?
Reds.
Oh,
Don't you gotta
cool.
they haven't started instruction, but you have to over Plainville.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, where?
Plainville and the,